03. Flag salute. It doesn't have roll call. We did roll call in closed session. So in recognition of free speech and the following board agenda item, we welcome all and would like to note that saying the Pledge of Allegiance is not a requirement to participate in the business of this public board. If you do not say the pledge for religious, political, social, or personal reasons, you are most welcome here as an equal participant in the business of this board. That said, if you would like to join us, please rise. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the board met in closed session and had discussions related to labor negotiations, and nothing was, am I not allowed to say that? No. No decisions were made. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? A motion.
I have a point of order about the agenda. I'm just seeking information. I noticed that the order of our agenda has changed significantly in terms of the placement of our board reports, and I was just seeking clarification and a rationale for that shift. It's usually located right after public comments, but it looks like it's been moved all the way down in the agenda to like the end of the meeting, and I was just seeking to know more about that.
Okay, no problem. In the past, this district has had their board reports at the end. Many other districts do that as well. And I made the decision in the interest of keeping the agenda in a positive, the meeting in a positive light, and move forward on the business of this agenda of this board, which is to conduct school business, that I felt that it was a better environment to have that at the end of the meeting, and therefore people can choose to leave prior to that if they wish to. That clarification?
I just have yes, I have a point of privilege on that. I do want to express my discomfort. I think that given the struggles that our board has had with decorum, that moving this particular item to the end of our meetings will just encourage more editorializing and commenting on meeting proceedings in the new format. But I guess we'll have to see how it goes, given that we're making this change tonight for the first time since I've served here for almost over a year now.
Standard in the past.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand what you're saying. It could end up causing more conversation as it is right at this moment, but I think in the long run, I think we'll find that it'll be a little bit of a more positive environment for conducting our business. So I'm hoping that's the change. This is my last meeting as my last full meeting as the board president. So whoever takes over, one of our other trustees takes over as board president, then if they want to change it again, they can certainly do so. But I'd really like to see if this helps us stay focused.
I have one more prior to the adoption of the agenda. It's a point of parliamentary procedure. I'm specifically looking at its business item E under section 14. I'm requesting information about that because our board bylaws 9310, they outline a clear process for policy development and adoption. And I haven't seen that process engaged in as of yet. And it seems that this item is making a motion to update our bylaws. And so
that item is not on the agenda at this point. We will bring it forward for discussion at its point in the agenda, and we will have an opportunity for discussion at that time.
So I'm actually asking for that item to be tabled because the process outlined in our bylaws has not been followed.
Yeah, so that would have to be, that request would have to be made when the agenda item comes up.
Okay.
Okay. And do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Polk. And a second. Adoption of the agenda. Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Roll call vote. Dr. Lee.
I'm going to abstain.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mrs. Pope,
Aye.
and Mrs. Anderson,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The agenda is adopted 4-1. Business item A, we're going to bring to the beginning of the meetings. This is an item that we recently had to add due to regulations regarding the Brown Act. So in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Newsom signed AB 361 into law, permitting public agencies to continue conducting meetings remotely. The Board of Trustees will need to adopt a resolution to allow meetings to remain virtually remote for 30 days. Resolution number 9/2021-22, resolution recognizing a state of emergency and reauthorizing teleconference meetings pursuant to AB 361. Do we have a motion to approve?
I would like to bring it to the floor for discussion.
We have a motion to bring it to the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second to bring it to the floor.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. And do we have any discussion?
Well, yes, I've been pondering on a solution on how to break the communication barrier between members of this board. And as a possible solution, my suggestion is when we move to the new boardroom, we should highly consider all members of the board being present in person. I believe this will help with the board to work as a team and to bond and bridge this barrier. In the new boardroom, there will be enough space for staff and for members and administration, cabinet, and community. So I would motion to approve it this month and following months. But when we get to the new boardroom, we all meet in person.
And I also would like, I don't think I did a very good job of explaining my feelings last meeting, but we have always prided ourselves to be a district that worked from top down when it came to setting rules and policies. In the past with budget cuts, our administrators cut their paychecks before we cut the employees' paychecks. And that's the way we've always worked. So if we're going to demand that our teachers be in the classroom, I think it's the least the board can do to come to a meeting once a month. The teachers and students are required to be here. I think that unless there's some kind of extenuating circumstance, the board members should be here. Nothing
I want to add.
change for the public. They could still go online and be a part of the meeting. None of that's going to change. All that's going to be there.
Actually, that is not correct, but
That's
finish your
what I
comment.
had in my discussions with the superintendent.
If AB 361 is not approved, the formatting for that, now the board could discuss a hybrid of that. If the board wants to meet and agrees to meet in the room, however, still provide that option for others, that would be more of a hybrid type. But if the board does not approve, if the board approves this resolution or does not approve this resolution, then it would go back to the current or existing Brown Act rules, which would be public comment, things like that would be done in person. So we need to craft a hybrid of that.
Right, but they could be done in person on the computer.
Not if we don't do AB 361. We would want to do if we want to do a hybrid and say, yes, all board members are present or all whatever is present. And then if the board wanted to keep that option open, you'd still have to adopt 361 with the conditions that the board members would come. And then we would keep that option open under 361 for the public.
I see, okay, I misunderstood.
Is that, have we talked to our legal about that? I mean,
That was
that
my
seems
next.
a little questionable to me that we would like break it up,
You-
make it required by some people and not required by
Right,
others.
so you could, I know some districts have tried it. I would definitely run it by legal before we do anything. And I would have them adapt the resolution for that.
Nancy, did you have more comment? Go ahead and finish.
No, just exactly what he said, that if a board member was sick, they could still Zoom in, just like we've always been able to do.
And then Dr. Lee, I believe you had a comment. You started this.
Yes, I was just going to thank Trustee Pope for making the recommendation about the meeting space. for everyone's health and well-being, I think a more spacious area to meet in is something that would make a whole lot of people feel more comfortable. And also, I want to just address this issue that has been raised multiple times by Trustee Anderson, that people aren't present. I'm most definitely present. I've been present here at our meetings, and the modality through which I'm present doesn't make me any less present. So I just want to point that out.
Then I had a comment. Notwithstanding this potential option to allow a hybrid, personally, I feel that, yes, we are requiring teachers and students to be here in person. That's based on the mandates and regulations that we've been provided. And I completely understand what you're saying about, if they have to do it, we should do it too. On the other hand, keeping it as a Zoom meeting not only keeps people safe that might not otherwise be safe, but it allows for more participation from the public. Someone could be in their kitchen cooking dinner.
We're still gonna have lights, aren't we?
Stop, jump on the Zoom meeting, make their public comments, go back to helping their kids with homework or whatever, it allows for more participation of the public, which is, as far as I'm concerned, any increase in participation by the public is a good thing. So that's, I get what you're saying.
We're still gonna do the live stream.
I still want to do this live.
This live stream is gonna always happen.
Yeah, the live stream, but then people can't comment unless Mr. Holbrook says that
Right,
that's
so
a possibility.
I would not recommend the board deviate from this, and I don't think Trustee Pope was recommending that, but if you want me to look into that, I can come back at the next meeting with that and give you some options, if that's something you guys would want to do.
And again, I would feel very uncomfortable saying, we're gonna leave it open for parents and community members to participate remotely, but not one of our own.
I would have to
I
agree.
get it, both sides of the argument, you guys.
I would have to agree, because a good example would be, and sorry, Mr. Bruno, you said it publicly, so I'll say it. Mr. Bruno had positive for COVID a few meetings back. He was able to participate as a board member as a result of that. If we had the other conditions, he could participate, but he would have to disclose his address, which would also allow the public to come into his house where there is COVID in this case.
Right.
So there is some things there. Now, if the board agrees that this is the practice that we want to do and we want to keep this open, I can talk to our legal about the hybrid option. But I would not recommend altering it right now until I get that opportunity to make that right.
I think that would be a totally different situation, because he would be under quarantine with COVID.
Correct. So you
It
could
would
have
not be a situation where he'd have to open his house.
But if AB 361 is not authorized or approved,
Then he would
if
not
he would not be able to
participate.
participate, or he would have to open his home up. But since he's under quarantine, he could not open his house, so he would be excluded from the meeting.
And that's precisely the reason that I lean towards keeping it as an emergency state at this point.
I think we could, there would be some allowance for that.
You would have to create that in the resolution. I do know
Yeah.
that, and I've actually talked to other districts about that, because this same conversation has come up with other districts. Board members have said, we all want to be there, but what if, or a family member has it, you're on isolation, you're in quarantine.
Yeah, there's got to be a way around that.
There does, and that's the same rationale for the public.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve business item A, or any further discussion? Sorry, apologies. Comments from the public?
I like the idea. Please come to the podium and identify yourself. I like the idea of being able to watch it at home, because we do have children and whatnot, and being able to make a comment and have it so that you see the comment live, not something that goes into a log.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your name is,
I think that's
so
a
that
good
for the
plan.
record.
Stephen Bush.
Okay, thank you. Sorry,
I have a recommendation.
please.
Why don't you have a phone option for people to call in?
With a Zoom,
Because-
you can call in with the Zoom.
But
Am I
if you
not
were to
right?
take the let's talk about getting out of a state of emergency, because that isn't necessary. And keeping guidelines, having people in a state of emergency to have these conveniences isn't convenient for everybody. So what you should do is look at what the Board of Supervisors does. They have a live stream going and they have a queue that people can call into. And they have a clerk that has the people patched in and they can make comments
Right.
to y'all right over the phone.
So that's a
I
similar
believe that's the
That's the
same
process
with a Zoom.
that we have, yeah.
That's
So-
what
There
there is a
you're
phone.
talking about keeping them in a state of emergency to be able to keep the Zoom.
So
No,
that's
That's
because,
not
Yeah.
necessary.
no, it is necessary though, because the Brown Act requires it of us unless we pass, that's why we're trying to pass this
I
361.
think what she's saying is if we can talk to Mr. Holbrook, and that's a possibility, is part of our hybrid
Right.
solution.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Frankly,
you.
I do think it would be nice to follow up with Mr. Holbrook about this, because when we come out of this, honestly, the ability for people to call in and participate, when things are rosy and wonderful with the world, I think is a
Yeah.
good thing that encourages more participation. So I would like to get clarification on,
Yeah, I think that's something we all want to keep.
but,
If we, and I can
Yeah,
look into
and
that.
I apologize, I didn't mean to sound like I was being argumentative. What I'm saying is that with Zoom, you don't have to be on the computer. They actually have a phone number that you can call into. So it's the same as if we had a separate phone line. And so if we are able to continue doing Zoom, that also is a phone call, is a conference call. Right? Am I not understanding the conversation?
No, I think,
Okay.
But I think what she was saying is we don't have to stay in the state of emergency. We can set it up on a phone line and go back to a regular.
That's what I was saying. Thank you for hearing. That's what my major point
We
was.
can come out of the
was
state
we
of
don't
emergency.
need
We don't have to
all
stay
the
there.
restrictions to
I
have
don't-
some
We
convenience.
can just set it up with the
I don't
phone
think we
call.
can do that.
we
can
would, with the Brown Act, I would have to clarify that.
Yeah, I think that's the question. Okay, so
Whether we're in the
I
state of
didn't-
emergency or not.
I
what's the
understand
option?
because I don't think that's an option, but I might be wrong. or
Yep, we'll
great
find
idea.
out.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. Okay, so everybody has had an opportunity to make comment. Do we have any further comments, public or otherwise? Do we have a motion to approve item A?
I would say that in light of what our current requirements are, I would motion to approve this.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Roll call vote. Dr. Lee,
Aye.
Mr. Bruno,
Aye.
Mrs. Pope, aye. Mrs. Anderson, sorry.
I'm gonna vote aye this time, just pending legal.
Okay, and the chair votes
Bring
aye.
it back for next month and.
It'll come back.
Thank you so much. Okay, item 10, organizational reports. CUTA, Vanessa Mason, if you could please enlighten us as to what's happening with the teachers.
I'll try. Hi, good evening. Some little bits to share with the school board. CHS, North Country and Spinelli have been attending PBIS training at Placer County Office of Education over the last 2 months and then over the upcoming school year.
Could you say what the acronym is?
PBIS, Positive Behaviors, Interventions and Supports.
Thank you.
I hope I didn't make that up.
You're convincing.
Yeah, okay. And then that means we'll have 100% of our schools, positive behavior support schools, and that means it'll be a TK through 12 program in our district. And so we're looking forward to having that program move from the elementary schools up to the high school, middle school and high schools, so that we have the similar language, be the one thing that all 7 schools have in common, positive behavior supports. And then just to reiterate, we want to thank the school board and the district who have hired so many additional staff this year. Our teacher staff is up to 250 members, which we've never had that many ever. Of course, that additional staff like social workers, counselors, has been amazing, taking a load off of the teachers. However, the teachers are still under a great deal of unanticipated stress this year. We thought, if we could just make it through last year, we would be okay. And then this year rolled through. So they're still under unanticipated stress, and the supports, the bridge supports are starting to buckle. So anytime that can be given back to the staff, whether it be fewer collaboration requirements from the administrators, less staff meeting time, more time for the teachers to record behavior information into Aries or contact parents or work on grading. It's the normal stuff that happens every year, but this year, the amount of documentation due to excessive behavior concerns at all of the school sites is putting the staff under a great deal of stress. And so that time is needed somewhere, and it's not falling within the contracted workday. So the contracted workday is 7.25 hours. From bell to bell, for the most part, staff has 40 minutes that is not part of their workday, part of their school bell schedule, which doesn't leave them very much time left in the contracted workday to do much. So that time has to come from somewhere. Right now, of course, it's coming from weekends, evenings, watching TV, tuning into the board meeting, they're grading papers. So if the staff can give that time, if the administrative staff can give that time back to the teachers, that would be greatly desired. And that's my one request for the board this month. Everything else is peachy, right?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions, Mason? Okay,
Thank you so much. All right, and Marie Huggins, CSEA.
Greetings.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Just thought about next week. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Hope you have a wonderful holiday. And this month at our chapter meeting, we're going to be discussing some tentative agreements that we have that are going to need ratification. And this is so that the district can post some new classification positions and also some changes to some existing positions. These are items that will come to the board most likely in December. I was kind of hoping they would come to the board this meeting with the pending the approvals from the chapter, since we do have some time sensitivity on hiring some new positions, like the vacancy that will be coming up for the account receivable position in the district office. That's going to be vacated as of December 30th. And with the short time frame on meetings and everything in December, we're hoping that the chapter will ratify so that the board can then go ahead and approve that, as well as a maintenance 2 position, groundskeeper 2 position, mechanic 2 positions that are going to be helping us as a district to get us ready for revamping our salary schedule next year. The negotiations team will start in January, working and collaborating with the district to do some reorganization of the classified salary schedule, which is greatly needed and will help toward parity. So I know the negotiations team will be looking forward to that. We will also be scheduling some regular new employee orientation opportunities so that CSEA has an opportunity to meet with new hires. We've had probably 30 to 40 new hires in classified, as we have also lost about 30 employees through retirements or resignations. And we haven't had an opportunity to meet with some of the new hires to talk about union representation. And so we're trying to now schedule new employee orientations a little more regularly so that we have that opportunity to make that offering to new employees. And so going forward, it looks like we will have some good opportunities to work with the district. And I know that we look forward to continuing the relationship that we've had with the board and with the administration at the district.
To you and Vanessa both. When I started, I felt like I knew every single person in this district, and I don't feel that way anymore. I don't know anybody anymore.
I know.
Heather Woods,
I know.
Heather Woods, our VP, says, I see new people every day and I've worked there for 20 years. And so, yeah.
It's crazy, so.
Yeah.
I
It's
need to get
wonderful
out
because
there.
look at all the new opportunities we have.
Absolutely.
Right, absolutely, I welcome them with open arms, but I feel bad, I need to get out there to the sites more, and yet with the whole COVID thing, I feel like I'm a burden to you guys on the
No, come
sites.
visit.
You know, so
Just can't be in your classroom.
anytime you guys
Just
are
we'll wait.
open arms, let me know.
You know, I have a solution for the vacancy on the AR position and that lapse between December and whenever we can fill the position. You just can't leave. You'll just have to stay. Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry,
well,
Marie.
all right.
Sorry, Marie.
No, we're keeping her, we're not letting her leave.
That's what I said. You just have to stay. Sorry.
Well, they said I could come back for negotiations in January if I bring goodies.
No, retirement's canceled.
Retiree. You would be a retiree member. You
We didn't
certainly could.
accept it.
All right. Any
you.
questions for Mrs. Huggins?
Thanks, Marie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marie.
You've been a blessing to Center School District.
That's very
Gonna
kind.
miss you. We're absolutely going to miss you, Marie. All right, moving on. Sorry about that. Moving on to item 11, reports and presentations. We have a presentation from Ryan Miranda on Student and Family Support Services Department report.
And Ryan is with us via Zoom, I believe.
Hello, Ryan.
Are you up there? There he
There he
is.
is.
Good evening, everyone. And good evening to our center community out there, our families, our parents, our caregivers, our students, our staff that are with us this evening. And I wanted to take this opportunity real quick to really give a shout out to our entire community, our school staff, community beyond, our partners. The past 2 years have, as we all know, has been difficult, but we have truly all come together to support one another. And I know in my department, Student Family Support Services, we cannot do this work alone. So from the top down, my team at CNI, my team here in my office, thank you everyone. And again, thank you for this opportunity. So I am Ryan Miranda, coordinator and homeless and foster liaison for the Student and Family Support Services Office. Many of you, some of you, none of you might know this department as a Family Resource Center. Came on board and went with that title for a couple of years and thought, you know, we're so much more than a family resource center. We provide support to students and schools and beyond. And so I really wanted to highlight that. So Student and Family Support Services. We are a team of, so myself, the coordinator, I have an office assistant, and then 2 student and family support assistants. So Marissa, Julia, and Abby, that's my team. Thank you. So brief snapshot of our services, our programs, and how we support our students, families, and schools. So tonight I'm going to dive a little deeper into our McKinney Mentor program, and that's the Education of Homeless and Children Youth program. We also have our Foster Youth Services program, community and mental health resources, linking our families, our parents, our caregivers, our students to those resources, and our family engagement learning sessions, and then program support to our school sites, which includes social emotional learning, SEL support through our bullying prevention work, school climate work, and then also our suicide prevention through question, persuade, and refer, and other suicide prevention trainings out there. So the McKinney Mentor program, that is our education for homeless and children and youth program. Tonight, I wanted to raise awareness and educate everyone on this federal law and how it trickles down from fed to state to our local school districts. and the importance of this law and the work that we're doing to remove barriers for our students and families and really ensure a positive outcome for all of our students. And so here's our federal definition. And so includes children and youth who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. They are considered homeless under the McKinney-Vento Act. And during this presentation tonight, I'm going to do my best to refrain from identifying students and families as homeless because we know that is a static condition and homelessness does not or should not represent someone for who they are. It is a lived experience. And so I will be referring to students and families as experiencing homelessness or our McKinney-Vento students and families. And so as you can see, students may be determined eligible as they self-identify and their parents or caregivers on a housing questionnaire. And we go through an intake and assessment process. And what we're looking at is, are those families sharing housing? And we often refer to that as doubled up with others because they need to. There is a financial strain and burden. And as we all know, due to COVID, that's exacerbated financial loss and housing loss. And so are they facing eviction? Are they couch surfing? Students and families living in motels, hotels, shelters or transitional housing, some even in our district, living in cars or even parks. And we're also looking at those students who are not living with their legal guardian. And so considering those students unaccompanied youth who are experiencing one of these living situations. And the federal definition does recognize students or children. Actually, it's 0 to 22. It's expanded that age range. And so we look at preschool, early Head Start, students with special education needs, and it also includes our students as they are transitioning to adult ed. And so we want to make sure that we identify all of those students in that age group. And please chime in at any moment if you have a question to break up me talking. So what we like to focus on is our awareness, our outreach and identification. And I really can't stress that enough. We cannot support our students and our families if we do not know who they are. And so again, we utilize a number of tools to identify students, and one of those tools is the housing questionnaire, and that housing questionnaire is accessible to students and families at the beginning of the school year in the enrollment packets. And as we've grown with our technology, that is now accessible online, and so we can send that out through a link, and families can click, and that comes to me. So we do that twice a year. We do that again at the beginning of the year, and then we'll do that again in January. Again, we know that experiencing homelessness, it transcends. And so you may not be experiencing homelessness at the beginning of the school year, but a situation arises, say again, in December or January, we want to make sure that you're identified. And we want to make sure that you're identified because you have the right to immediate enrollment. You have the right to school stability. So you have the right to stay in, let's say, Dudley Elementary. If for some reason you need to move to South Sac, we want you to know that your student has the right to continue to attend Dudley Elementary. And we want to do our best to keep our students in our district, right? We want to remove those barriers. So if there's transportation barriers to getting to school, we want to do all we can to remove that barrier to that student getting to Dudley. And to touch on that, at this point, and we'll go into some numbers, if we're looking at current school stability rate for our students experiencing homelessness, we've identified 308 students thus far. We're in November. We're at 308. Last year, we were at 305. So we've already topped that. And of that 308 students, 21 of our students have left our school district for some reason or another. So not too bad. But again, we want to focus on that school stability rate. And I know CDE is they're putting out data that is looking at school stability. So that's going to be of the utmost importance for us to dig a little deeper into that data. And again, making sure that our students and our families know they have the right to stay here, and we want them to stay here. And then last but not least, support for success. And we really go straight to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we want to make sure that our students have those basic needs. So school supplies, toiletry items, bedding, air mattresses, counseling supports, medical assistance, vision, you name it, we want to make sure that they get it, because we know if they don't have that, they may not be successful day to day. So here you can see our MV count. Last year, 305 students identified as experiencing homelessness. And then as of this year, we're looking at, 308. We just got a couple identified this year. And so if you remember, if you look at, we're looking at 0 to 22. And so 308 students have been identified within our district, but that doesn't include the 60 either children or youth or young adults or adults that are living in those households. So we're getting high into the 400s of students, children, youth, and young adults that are experiencing homelessness within our school district alone.
Ryan, do we know what the number was the year prior to COVID?
So enrolled prior to COVID, I do. Unfortunately, I have that at my fingertips, but I will definitely get that data to you. I will tell you, we have seen within our district our number range all the way from 420. That was back in 2017, 2018 school year. And we have seen a slow decrease, so around the 300s. And across the state, we have seen the numbers decline. And so that is so important for us. That's the reason we want to raise awareness, because we know these numbers are well underrepresented in our district, countywide and statewide. And so we're definitely on the decline. But we know there are students out there. And so it's our job within our department. And it's really everybody's job to help identify these students. To give you some context, we're looking at about 184,000 students identified in California public schools. And then in Sacramento County alone, last year, our numbers were about 5,500. And again, that's a drastic increase compared to the previous years. COVID, lack of immediate access to staff members, to students, to families. And so we're really trying to bridge that gap and identify those students. And then here you have a look at our living situation. So I talked about those living situations and how we identify eligibility. And the majority of students and families are doubled up. So they're living with friends, relatives. We have some hotel, motel. We've seen, as you can see, we had a lot of families in hotels, motels last year. At this moment, we're at 3. And if you know our area well enough, you know that we don't have any hotels or motels in Antelope. And so those are on the outskirts of our county. And so again, making sure that they have what they need and transportation as a barrier is removed for them to get here. And so here's my lovely web of all the services that we have provided and are able to provide. It really runs the gamut. and is based off need. And we really do a deep dive during that intake process when we're identifying students and families experiencing homelessness to determine what their needs are.
Excuse me, Ryan.
Yeah.
Sorry, it seems like you might be referring to some slides which we are not seeing on the screen. Were you intending to be sharing? If not, that's fine. We have them in the binder, but it sounds like, there we go. Thank you.
That's great, you guys. I am so sorry about that.
It's okay. We didn't miss anything. It was fine.
Can I click and see that screen?
I'm so sorry about that.
It's
All right, so here's my web. Here's my web of student and family-centered services. Again, really runs the gamut of the services that we can provide to match and support the needs of our students and families. Last year, we were able to provide close to 1,400 services to our students and families. At this point in time, we are close to 1,200 services provided to students and families. I will say we have seen an increased need in immediate food access. And so we are very fortunate to have partnered with the Sacramento Food Bank to get immediate access to shelf-stable grocery boxes. And so getting those in the hands of our students and families. And then also mental health support, providing those resources and referrals for families to access community-based counseling. And then again, the basics, the school supplies, the backpacks, hygiene products, and clothing also. And so our services in action, wanted to highlight just a couple. So mentoring, again, we have our student and family support services staff members, and that's Julia and Abby, and they serve in a mentoring role. They serve as a positive, a consistent positive adult role model for a select identified students in our school district. And they're providing academics and attendance support, some motivation, some homework help, social and life skills development, working with students on building their resume, how to get a job, job interview skills, how to sign up, gain access to a driver's license, and then also providing transition planning support for life after high school. So for our high school students, it's never too early to start that transition planning and establish some short and long-term goals. And then wanted to shout out our McKinney-Vento site representatives. They are an extension of our McKinney-Vento program. And so really our point of contact, our go-to contact to help identify students and families. And if we had trouble internally of getting in touch with families who have self-identified on a housing questionnaire, I know I can go to my site representative and they can help make that connection for us and link us up. So they have been a great support to our department. And then our community collaboration, shout out to Antelope Lions Club. They are amazing. Right now we are in winter holiday season. And so working with them to support our families with Thanksgiving meals, getting them and their students access to warm clothing. So we've received a very, very kind donation of jackets and hoodies that are stored in our clothing closet. So thank you, Antelope Lions Club. And again, Sacramento Food Bank. We have a drive-through event tomorrow from 11:30 to 4:30. Again, that's tomorrow here at the district office annex. Family students can come by and pick up, again, shelf-stable grocery boxes for them to take with them. And that is free for our CJUSD families and students. And then also recognizing our Sacramento County Office of Education for the support that they provide to us the technical assistance. And as laws are being discussed, they're keeping us in the loop. And so we appreciate them a lot for their support and technical assistance. So that concludes my presentation update. Sorry for the mishap with my presentation PowerPoint. I apologize. Any questions?
I do have a question, just maybe if you know. I have a garage full of almost new toys. Do you have any idea who might take those for handing out? You? Awesome.
We would.
When do you want them and where?
Yes. Thank
That was
you.
similar to my question, Ryan. What is needed? What kind of donations do you need? Everything? Everything?
So we truly appreciate all the support, any support we can get, but we know right now, winter, it's cold. We had a lot of rain. We don't have any right now, but warm clothing is a need right now. And again, talking about those sleeping bags, the air mattresses, we have students without beds, and so getting them the basics would be ideal. Scarves, gloves, things of that nature, we would appreciate.
Is it possible to get that out to the staff this time of year? There's quite a few of us looking for something done.
That's a good idea.
Of course.
Do you accept new and used, or do you want them all new, or?
We accept new and gently used. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Miranda, I don't know if you heard the public comment from Ms. Woods, but she was asking if it's possible to send an email out to staff requesting the items that you need.
Yeah, I can certainly do that. Yes.
Or Mr. Ware.
Perfect. What company is he with, or organization?
He works for the district.
For
He works
district.
for the district.
We have a family resource center within the district.
Okay.
So it's for our own homeless kids.
So we serve all students and families, and we want to ensure that all students have access to our services. We do prioritize our students experiencing homelessness and our students in foster care, but definitely we want to support all.
Perfect. How many students did we lose from last year to this year? For not lose,
21.
registration wise?
21.
So it was 21 out of the 308 who were identified as experiencing homelessness.
No,
Is that correct?
Out of the district.
Oh.
He said we lost how many children out of the district from last year to this year?
To our ADA lot.
I think he was referring to, Ryan, were you referring to homeless or total district numbers? So we
So those were homeless numbers.
Right. So district-wide, we're pretty flat to our projections. So as far as losing students from our 4,300, our base is pretty much a wash. We did not see a significant, we did see students enter into independent study, which is still part of the district.
Any other questions or
There's just
comments
more
from Mr.
homeless
Miranda?
students that.
Just thank you, Ryan, for all you do and your team. I believe that once we get the panoramic survey fully implemented, your work with your students and Mr. Jackson's work with his students with chronic absenteeism, working with Mr. Jordan's team of social workers, counselors, and ERMS. ERMS is educational related mental health services. I think working together, we'll be able to capture these students that are having struggles earlier than what we did before.
Yeah.
So great work with all you guys, Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jackson, and your team, Mr. Miranda.
Thank you, and I second that, and it's definitely a team approach. And as stated earlier, our new social workers and our whole counseling support team, they have been amazing, and it really is going to take all of us to come together. And so appreciating that work that we've been doing. Yeah.
And I just wanted to reiterate that although Mr. Miranda's presentation was focused heavily on those experiencing homelessness, it is definitely student and community services for everyone, not just for our McKinney-Vento students. So particularly foster, people with mental health needs, struggling financially, all different types of needs. They provide wonderful services to our community. So thank you. Thank you to you and your staff.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation too. All right, moving right along. And next is our comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. I'm just going to read the statement. Anyone may address the board regarding any item that is within the board's subject matter jurisdiction. However, the board may not discuss or take action on any item which is not on this agenda, except as authorized by Government Code Section 54954.2. A speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes. All public comments on items listed on this agenda will be heard at the time the board is discussing that particular item. I do have a couple of public comments here. First, we have.
Before you go on with that, can I point something out?
Uh-huh.
The resolution that we passed earlier about the COVID and the board meetings and stuff, that's something that we'll have to pass every month from now on if we're going to continue it. So it will come back next month to be discussed again, and legal opinions and all of the stuff that we talked about. I just didn't know if you guys understood that every month we'll be doing that.
Thank you for clarifying that, Nancy. Yeah, we're required to approve it each month based on findings.
I don't see that part in the agenda for today. Is that on the agenda today?
It was business item A, which was near the beginning of the agenda, like the very first item. Page 2. Okay, public comments. We have Mr. Steve Bush from Envelope. Who would like to speak?
Hello again.
Hello, Mr.
I was here last month. I have a 7 and a 9-year-old grandson, both autistic, both with speech apraxia. I wanted to give you an update. I'm also here to support my daughter who'd like to have a couple of minutes of your time. I'm also here for a request. I would like what we're proposing to you to be put on an agenda because we're not getting where we need to be. My children, grandchildren, have speech apraxia. We finally got a date set for an IEP, which will be early December. So that puts us 4 months into the school year, which makes it 40% of the school year. The grandchildren have not received any speech. From my understanding, public schools are responsible for this. So we've already waylaid 40% of their school year. At the time, my wife and I, my better half, we are paying for them to get speech because it's gone on way too long. Okay, so the IEP, I just received the proposed IEP today. This morning it was given to me. The district is proposing that an SLP, speech language pathologist, provide the speech for my boys. The district employs an apraxia speech pathologist certified in that field. But the district is not offering that person. Why? That's my question. Let me ask you this. Let's say you have a child, you go to the doctor. Something's wrong with your child. Doctor says, well, let's run some tests. You run some tests. Darn tootin', there's something wrong with your child. Doctor says, well, I'm gonna get a hold of the specialist and I'll take care of this and we'll run it from there. Are you gonna accept that as a parent? Or are you gonna say, no, doctor, I want to take my child to the specialist? Just a saying, what you gonna do? So my daughter has something to say and I hope you listen. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, is that you?
I'm Kayla
Yeah, go
Holloway.
ahead and come on. It's fine. Just have a continuation.
Can I come up with her in case you need support?
Absolutely.
Okay,
If you could provide your name.
I'm Kayla Holloway.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my
These
other
are what we're
comment.
talking about,
They're adorable,
okay? What we're talking about.
absolutely adorable.
Turn this way, well, he.
They're like, "Yes, see?"
We kind of touched on some of the subjects already, but, hello, board members, thank you for serving. I'm here on behalf of my sons, who you just saw. My sons have apraxia of speech and are autistic. We have an upcoming IEP and an SLP has been offered. It has been made clear to us that the apraxia of speech teacher is not on the table. She is available to oversee, but not to teach. This is not acceptable. My family and I am not willing to go backwards, not willing to watch or even take a chance and let this district gamble that my son, this one, will lose his speech again. It has been in the past that he has. We have tried this before and he has lost his speech. I'm not willing to watch him lose the reading skills and the confidence he has gained thus far from working 5 days a week for 45 minutes for those 5 days, every single day, for 7 of his 9 years of life. I am not willing to watch him go back to thinking he is dumb and stupid and the world hates him because his brilliant thoughts cannot make it from his brain to his mouth. That is what speech apraxia is. It's a motor function. You have a teacher specialized in this, and you're not allowed to take that away from my son or any other apraxia child when you have a resource in your district that is not being used for these children. So we ask that you stop boasting that you're for every child and believe in diversity, but make sure it happens and start right now. I request this board, Mr. Lauer, Mr. Jordan, this district, to make the apraxia speech teachers hired available for my son and all apraxia children in this district, not to oversee their speech, but to teach them because that is what they need. Otherwise, I asked Mr. Lauer to make a special request to this district for a special waiver for the general funds to be used to pay for an individualized contract with an NPA, with the NPA that we've been using, who has 40 years of experience and who's been able to reach my child and make it so that he can speak from his nonverbalism. We're not going backwards. And lastly, I actually have a question for the board and something that my 7 and 9-year-old would like to ask of all of you. They would like to know why they are asked at school to be kind and to behave if those bosses on the computer get to act like crazy people and argue and fight. Why do adults make rules they don't follow? And lastly, they said, are they coming to our school? Because we hope they aren't. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott, why was the insurance requirement raised? Was that?
So one thing I'm hesitant to go into it. What I can do is I can follow up.
Discuss it.
We'll follow up, Mr. Jordan, I will follow up
apologize.
with.
I could say something to Nancy though, not regarding that.
Absolutely, you can say whatever you like.
Okay, I can say whatever I like. So, it raised from $1 million to $5 million. And it's based on, let's just say misconduct of people touching children or whatever. Okay, am I close? Okay, so we want to do it online. It's been very successful with my children through this. So we're asking, however you do it, let's continue. It's 5 days a week. After school, they don't have to get disrupted in their art class because we don't want to take them out of core classes. Let's do it now. Can you please put it on the agenda?
I guess what part of what I was asking is, who's requiring? Is it school services? Is it
Cell
our
phone.
district? Is it?
So again, I'm
Unfortunately-
sorry, Nancy, we really cannot discuss it because it's not agendized.
General
we can
questions
certainly-
can be asked.
But we can ask these questions of Mr. Lear after the meeting and know that there will be follow-up, and I think that's probably sufficient, but we can't have a
General
discussion
questions
about
can
it.
be asked.
So what I would do is I'll follow up with Mr. Jordan. I know we have an IEP coming up. We've heard both of you and thank you both for.
Yeah, I will be asking for restitution, by the way.
Yeah, I assume. And so I would want to make sure that we follow up and follow the process because student matters in public are also a different matter too. So we want to be a little cautious on that, but I would work with Mr. Jordan and then we'll work with the family to see what we can come up with. And possibly if online is an option, we can explore that through our cell phone, but
Especially if it's work for the child.
I would like to say thank you for coming to the board. I know it's hard. Mr. Bush, you were here last month, though I was not, but I did see you on live stream. Kyla, this is your first time that I know of, so I appreciate that. It takes a lot of guts to come up and speak freely about your children, so it's appreciated. And as Ms. Kelly said, we are not able to discuss in public because it is student matters. However, reassured, this will not be dropped.
Thank you.
And
God bless you.
knowing autistic children, like I know how hard it is for them to change, any change whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
And you have my sympathies as a. even
Thank you all for
grandparent.
hearing us.
Another grandparent, we do the same thing.
We have to go because we have to go take care of those.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay, moving right along. Do we have any other public comments?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, please come forward. And if you don't have a card, go ahead and state your name when you come to the podium.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Sharon Hawkins. And there was an event that happened a couple weeks ago regarding a parent-teacher conference that I had at Center High School with Mr. Ferguson. It didn't end well, so I wrote a letter to Mr. Lohr, and I just wanted to read it to you because as of now I've got no response. Dear Mr. Lohr, I wanted to make you aware of an incident that happened last week regarding one of the teachers at Center High. On November 3rd, I had a parent-teacher conference with Mr. Ferguson and Mr. Lavastol regarding lack of communication and the unresolved status of a missing grade from my son. I have reached out to Mr. Lavastol on multiple occasions for assistance and was not receiving consistent responses. The missing assignment in question was from September 3rd. I made several more attempts in trying to get clarity with no success, so I reached out to my son's counselor, Kim Bianca. No, I'm butchering the name, so forgive me. On Tuesday, October 26th, after reading my email, Kim advised me to contact the vice principal, Mr. Peterson. I contacted Mr. Peterson the same day and never got a response. I reached out again on Thursday, November 8th, to confirm receipt of the email and still received no response. At that point, I reached out to Mr. Ferguson, who promptly reached out to Mr. Lavastol and Mr. Peterson to schedule a conference. We decided on a Wednesday, November 3rd at 8:30 for the conference. On Monday, I received an email from Mr. Peterson apologizing for the delay in the response of my original email from October 26th. He stated that he was going to reach out to Mr. Lavastol about my concerns, clearly not realizing that a meeting was already scheduled for Wednesday. When I arrived on Wednesday, Mr. Lavastol did not greet me. He raised his hand in acknowledgement. Prior to the discussion, Mr. Lavastol prefaced that he was dealing with personal issues with his son that had previously attended center and was not now. He stated that he had run away and had just returned the previous night. He also said that him being at the conference was a big deal since he was dealing with personal issues. Mr. Ferguson also chimed in stating that it was a testimony to Mr. Lavastol's dedication as a teacher that he was present for the conference. I thanked everyone for their time and the opportunity to get some clarity regarding my issue. During this time, I produced my documentation of all of the interactions with Mr. Lavastol and myself since the beginning of school, including the dates and the responses or lack of. This seemed to upset Mr. Lavastol, and he responded a lot and that he's been slammed. I then inquired about the missing grade from September 3rd that I've been trying to get clarity about since the fall break. Mr. Lavastol pulled out his phone and looked up the grade. He said that my son had turned it in, but not really. I asked what that meant, and he explained that my son did not push the send button. I asked why it has taken 2 months to finally get this explanation and replied, I'm doing the best that I can. He then started talking about how none of the students wanted to pull out their Chromebooks and that he must constantly remind them to wear their masks, and went on to say that he provides cheat sheets for the students to assist them in the tests. As part of the solution, Mr. Ferguson suggested that the grade could be waived since it was too late to be made up. Mr. Ferguson also stated that a substitute could be assigned to Mr. Lobstow to assist him with catching up with his work. Neither of these suggestions worked for me as I was looking for solutions and accountability. I explained to Mr. Lobstow that as a teacher, he had not provided my son with the tools and the resources for him to be successful in his class. I let Mr. Lobstow know that my son had put in significant time studying for the last test and still failed. I also asked for additional resources, information to assist him with taking future tests, and I received no response. In addition to his lack of communication that had caused me to lose faith in his ability to teach effectively, I asked for my son to be assigned to another teacher. Right after my request, Mr. Lobstow said he was being attacked and that he was done. He told me to knock myself up, got up, stormed out of the meeting. But before he left, he turned around and looked at me and said, your kid doesn't do shit. I was so shocked and stunned by his unprofessional and disrespectful behavior. I looked at Mr. Ferguson, who was still sitting at the table, and said that he couldn't control him. He said that he had empathy for Mr. Lobstow, but agreed his behavior was unacceptable. I am disgusted and deeply disturbed at Mr. Lobstow's cowardly attack on my child. Instead of directing his concerns at me as a competent teacher would, he instinctively chose to go after my son. That is a problem. Mr. Lobstow is not in the mindset to teach young adults and is clearly unhinged and erratic. His toxic, unstable behavior needs to be addressed and have consequences. I got the distinct impression that this was not Mr. Lobstow's first time acting out like this. He seemed very comfortable with his behavior. No student should have to deal with such an unstable and toxic teacher that can't complete a parent-teacher conference without storming away. While I appreciate Mr. Ferguson's quick action in moving my son to another teacher, I do not appreciate the attempt at trying to be pacified by a grade waiver or a promise to increase staff to assist Mr. Lobstow with controlling his class. I asked why Mr. Lobstow was not on leave, and Mr. Ferguson replied that it would take him twice as long to catch up. I'd like to know the next steps for Mr. Lobstow and how the district intends on assisting this teacher that is clearly in need of help. Thank you for the time. I look forward to hearing from you. And as of now, I've got no response.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Ms. Hawkins?
Sure.
So that email was sent to Mr. Letter?
Yes, it was.
Could you forward that to the board, please?
Or can you give me an email address to forward?
They're all on the website, go under board members.
And actually, I'll give you, I did not receive the email, so that is, this is the first I've heard of this, so I actually will be contacting you tomorrow.
I used the email that was on the.
And I'm sorry, I'm very good on my email, and I do not even know the story, so I wrote a note. I will reach out to you tomorrow.
You've never seen this?
I did not. So I will go ahead and reach out with you, either myself or our HR department, to talk with you to hear more about the concerns you have. So absolutely, thank you for bringing it, and I'm sorry that you felt like I didn't respond, because unfortunately I'm really good at responding. You would have got something from me saying I received it, so I'm apologize for that.
I would be totally shocked if
I
he had seen it that he didn't respond.
So,
Yeah.
Mr. Laird, do you have her contact information?
I was gonna actually ask if you mind writing it down for me, and then but I was gonna do it once she stepped away.
Sure. Okay.
So when you please email Mr. Laird or resend, could you CC the board?
Absolutely.
And again, they're on the website under board members, and it has our email address.
I would say though, if it may become part of a complaint process, so there might be the appropriate channel to go through. It sounds like we have a
We may
complaint.
hear it as a.
So I would want, let me work, if the board's okay, let me work with Ms. Hawkins, and then we can.
As
go
long
through the
as,
process.
as long as we receive some sort of an update as to
Absolutely.
what's happening, that would be great. I understand us not wanting to see all the details prior, in case it does come before us.
Yes, I'm not going
in another context, but yeah, I definitely do want to know what's happening.
Okay, then Mr.
And
Laird.
certainly-
Judge it at the end, we may have to be
It's
Sorry.
certainly,
So
I
we don't want to get the details ahead of time.
certainly, I'm not saying don't email the board. I was just saying with that, I will be the one to work with our HR department to help you through that process. So I apologize that you felt like we did not respond. So I will make sure that I get your contact and we'll reach out to you tomorrow to
Can I
say,
give it to you now?
I'm gonna give you the paper.
Is
I
that
think
clear?
that-
Ms. Hawkins, I just wanted to express to you, my sincere apologies for the disrespectful language that you were subjected to and the disrespectful actions that you have communicated to the board. And I will also be looking with most great interest in following up on this item. It's so important that every single student in our district and family feels heard and included. And I just want to express again to you my sorrow with hearing what you shared with the board this evening.
Thank you, I appreciate that, because at the very least, I was expecting some kind of apology on behalf of the school or the teacher, even though he didn't have the wherewithal to do that. But the fact that Mr. Ferguson basically sat very comfortably and said that he couldn't control it was unacceptable.
I'm sure.
Thank you so much for coming. Again, it's hard to come to the board and talk about your own child, but it's appreciated. Hello, more public comments?
Hello. Hi, I'm Sarah King, I'm a visual art teacher at Wilson Rouse. At the last board meeting, Kelly proclaimed that we cannot go against what is handed down to us. Today, I would like to speak on board policy and the responsibility that board members hold to address public and staff members' concerns. Board policy 4030, personnel. The governing board is determined to provide a safe, positive environment where all district employees are assured of full and equal employment access and opportunities, protection from harassment and intimidation, and freedom from any fear or reprisal or retribution for asserting their employment rights in accordance with law. For purposes of this policy, employees include job applicants, interns, volunteers, and persons who contracted with the district to provide services as applicable. My understanding is that the mandate is not a law. Our civil liberties are still very much there and exist. They are protected rights. At our last meeting, Scott made it sound so easy for parents and staff members to get a religious or medical exemption from these unconstitutional mandates. I am an admin of a Facebook group. It is comprised of over 1.7 thousand teachers across the state of California. Not one member has stated that they have successfully received an exemption from their district for COVID-19 testing or vaccination. I have created a group within Center Joint Unified where those whose vaccination should be a choice are welcome. I have over 20 members of staff so far. With no help from my admin, I had to send out each email individually. I was not able to send a mass email to the district, many of whom are seeking medical or religious exemptions. Thousands of teachers have lost their jobs due to these mandates, and thousands more will begin to walk out if you do not take action. Thousands of students have decided homeschooling is the best option to refrain from constant testing and quarantine requirements. It is a sad feeling seeing one of my students who took the time to express to me her concerns over the mandate now become disenrolled this week. Thousands more will move to homeschooling if school boards continue forcing vaccination. From last board meeting, I'm safe to assume that multiple, if not all, members of the board have been vaccinated. That was your choice. We all should have a choice and the right to that choice. Students and staff are included. The great thing about America is that we have the right to disagree without discrimination or retaliation. I encourage the board to take responsibility for their part of enforcing these mandates and write a letter to the state addressing opposition to forcing vaccination on the students as well as staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any other public comments? Oh, one more. Or a spinning or that's fine.
Hi, my name is James Anderson. I'm a parent of two lovely kids, 10 and 8. I just want to express my appreciation for all the district has done to help kids stay in school. It's meant a lot to me and my kids as far as their mental and emotional health, to have friends that they can learn with and learn in that environment. So I appreciate all that you've done to make that possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I just want to kind of piggyback on what she had mentioned about the mandates that are coming down, and I haven't really seen
I don't
any
think you mentioned your name.
Maryland Truex.
Thank
I have
you.
2 children that were in the district. I took them out this year because my children will not wear masks. They will not be forced to do anything that they don't choose to do. And I attend regularly to all of the Board of Supervisors meetings. I listen to the health updates live in person every couple of weeks. So I know exactly what they're telling us and I know exactly what they're not telling us. And I would like to ask this group here to agendize whether you're going to put these mandates forth for your group. I haven't seen anybody take a stand on what I've seen, what you have said on social media previously, that you did lean towards encouraging or supporting the mandate. I haven't seen anyone else take a stand here. So I would ask that you guys put that on your agenda and see where everybody stands. Because they're unlawful. Even OSHA has put a hold on mandating those for employees. So I would encourage you to take a look. And I know that I'm not the only parent that unenrolled their children this year. And that's why I did ask that question, because I have 2 neighbors that moved to Placer to take their kids. And I have another couple of friends that moved down the street for other reasons. They believe that they were getting more from their district, more support. So I would encourage you all to take all of this into consideration and put that on your agenda and find out where y'all stand.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Seeing no more, we'll move on to consent agenda, item number 13. Do we have a motion to approve? Thank you so much, Mr. Bruno. We have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Coe. We have any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Dr. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Bruno?
Aye.
Mrs. Pope?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. The consent agenda is passed. Moving on to item number 14, business items continued. Item number B, schedule the annual organizational meeting of the board. So every year, Education Code 35143 requires governing boards to set an annual organizational meeting within a 15-day period that commences with the date upon which a governing board member elected at that election takes office. Mouthful. Organizational meetings in years in which no such regular election for governing board members is conducted shall be held during the same 15-day period on the calendar. The board members are seated on the first Friday of December following the November election. The 15-day period for 2021 is December 10th through the 24th. So we need to conduct a organizational meeting somewhere between December 10th and 24th. And that meeting is to determine who will be our president and our clerk, and I believe representatives to a couple of other things. We have a motion to approve, or I guess we would need a specific motion.
We would want the motion to set that our December meeting, our December meeting would be the one that the board would hold their organizational meeting.
Motion?
I'll motion. I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson, Mrs. Pope and Mrs. Anderson. Okay, do we have any discussion on the organizational meeting being held at the December 15th CJUSD board meeting. No discussion, hearing none, roll call vote, Dr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mrs. Pope. Aye. Mrs. Anderson.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Business item B has been passed. Organizational meeting is scheduled for December 15th. CSBA delegate assembly nominations, business item C. Nominations will be accepted until Sunday, January 7. Any CSBA member board is eligible to nominate board members within the geographical region or subregion. Each board may nominate as many individuals as it chooses. Subregion for CJUSD is 6B. Do we have any nominations for delegate? Delegate again. I don't think I need to be nominated.
Her term is not up, so it'll be for a new term.
Another one. Yes. Delegate. So we have a motion to table. With a second. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Do we need to vote on that? I'm sorry. I think parliamentary procedure says we have to vote on it tabling. Okay, so Dr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mrs. Pope. Aye. Mrs. Anderson. Aye. And the chair votes aye. This is item C has been tabled. All right, item D, authorization for the CJUSD financing team to proceed with the sales in aggregate principal amount not to exceed $43 million of the issuance and election of 2008 Series 2021B general obligation bonds. This is a follow-up to resolution number 7, 2021 that was passed by the Board of Trustees at the October 20th, 2021 board meeting. Approval of this would allow the CJUSD financial team to determine the amount of bonds to be sold not to exceed $43 million and proceed with the process. We have a motion to either bring this to the floor or to approve.
Motion we approve.
With a second. I'll second. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson and Mrs. Pope. Do we have any discussion?
We need the school. Houses are being built.
Houses are going up. The school.
I would just share that this is a follow-up to the item that we said last month that when all of the information, we were working behind the scenes as well to prepare for this. It is looking like it could be a good time to go to market come this December based on different variables. So I would encourage the board to approve this, and then we will take it, myself, Lisa, Mr. Putman, and our financial advisors to try and secure the best deal for us.
Do we have anything left on the first bond?
We do. We have about 5 million remaining on that. This would be from the second bond.
Okay.
And it also caps at that $60 per 100,000 of the evaluation. So what we're going to see is this year is kind of our highest level. It drops down, and with this issuance, it actually just fills a little bit of the gap, but still will be a little bit lower than it previously was based on the projections and what we ended up selling.
Do we have any discussion? Further discussion, I should say? Seeing none, roll call vote. Dr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mrs. Pope. Aye. Mrs. Anderson. Aye. The chair votes aye. Business item D has been approved. Business item E, BB 9220, governing board elections. It was requested that CJUSD update BB 9220 to include a requirement to provide annual verification of residency status within the district boundaries. All such verifications would remain confidential and not be for public distribution. We have a motion to approve.
Almost.
I have a point of parliamentary procedure and inquiry to make. And I tried to raise it earlier and I was asked to wait until now, so I'm again raising it. I have a question about the process and the appropriate process for new revisions to our adoptions of new policies. Our board bylaws 9310 make clear that there is a process and a procedure that is to be followed for the adoption or a modification of our board policies. And it doesn't just include an action item being put on the agenda. For example, I'm referring specifically to point 2, which states that as needed, the superintendent or designee shall gather fiscal data, staff and public input, related district policies, sample policies, and other useful information and data to fully inform the board about a particular issue. And not only that, these things should also proceed as outlined in items 3 through 5 of our board policy. So I'm again requesting that the chair provide clarification about why we're deviating from our board bylaws and not providing us with the information that we need to make a decision on this matter. I don't even know what this is because it hasn't gone through the appropriate process.
So once we bring it to the floor for discussion, I believe that there will be some clarifications made. And then if there is further information that you would like to request, we certainly can table it and work towards providing that information for future. But for now, I think we just need to bring it to the floor for discussion in general. And then we have a motion to bring it to the floor.
I motion.
And I second.
And this is it. So if you have
So
further
are we
comments,
talking about making an action item to update our bylaws? I'm not clear on what we're actually.
It's not a policy change.
actually, it is a change to board policy.
It is a revision.
It is a request to change the board policy. So I think since, does somebody have comments?
Sure, let me give the background behind this. I was discussing with somebody about what the requirements were to be on the board. And they asked me, how do we know if someone continues to reside within the district? And well, we don't really check in on that. And so that got me thinking, well, how can we do that? And I just thought a simple thing where we verify it to the district, the same as students do to verify that they're living within the district to be enrolled. We just do it annually, and I talked to Superintendent Ware and he put this together. Now, as far as the policy, number 2, you said as needed, the superintendent or designee shall gather fiscal data, staff and public input, related district policies, sample policies, etc. I would argue that I don't see that as being needed for a simple address verification to show that we live within the district. Most of these things on the list says as needed or as appropriate, and I don't see a fiscal impact here, so fiscal data would be completely irrelevant.
It's a law. I mean, it's
It's just showing that we still meet the qualifications to serve on the board.
It's just
And
adding.
updating our bylaws is not something to be taken lightly. And if we're going to start just being willy-nilly about it and not following process and procedure, I have a big point of privilege, a big discomfort with that. I'm sorry if I heard something, but there's many things that a board member does to qualify to serve on this board. And I think that changing our bylaws to, add on additional requirements that aren't required by any other board, that aren't in the ed code, that aren't in the elections code, would be very problematic. And so that's why I'm calling us back to step 2, which usually when we look at board bylaw amendments or changes, the superintendent does bring information. So it sounds like Trustee Bruno has mentioned that where it came from, which addresses item 1 of the process. Step 2 is the superintendent bringing us information so that we can make and consider this item and actually draft up a policy for a first reading, which is step 5 after that. So I'm asking us again to follow procedure.
What information would you like him to bring us about this?
I would like for him to bring us sample policies, related district policies, and other useful information and data to fully inform us about this particular issue.
Do you not realize it's a requirement by the state that you live in the district to be on our school board?
I think you're confusing the issue. I'm not discussing that aspect of it. I'm talking about the process that's being used and us following our bylaws, which state that we have a policy development and adoptions process. I'm asking us to follow that.
Signed an affidavit saying you live in the district to be on the school board.
We're not discussing that. We're discussing amending or changing our board policy, and that's what I'm focusing on.
Guys, let's not. Okay, so can I go ahead and make a comment? So in your comment, Dr. Lee, you mentioned that it's not part of and code, it is. You mentioned that it's not part of elections code, it is.
What are you
We're
referring
not
to? I
changing,
apologize.
it is required that we live within the district, so those things are required. We're not adding anything, or any other requirements to the requirements that are necessary in order to be on a board. We're not adding to any requirements. We're just providing a method for verifying that so that we can provide transparency to our community, to the people who voted and who have questioned. How do we know?
And I'm
a very simple addition to board policy.
No, it's a change to our board
clarify.
bylaws. We're suggesting a change to our bylaws, and I'm asking us to take caution with that and
that's
to
not-
follow
that's what
our
a board
established
is for.
process.
That's
And to
what
follow
our
our
job
process.
is a school board. That is our job, to set policy.
Right, and to follow our own bylaws, which outline how we adopt and approve and change policy as well.
Okay, and
And what's
again-
on the table is a discussion of changing our bylaws. And we're looking at bypassing step 2 of that
We are not
through.
looking at bypassing any steps. We
I
are
have not
operating-
been provided
we
with
are
sample
operating-
policies.
Okay,
I
that's
have not
fine.
been provided with useful information, data, or related district policies. I am requesting that
No.
information so that I can make an informed decision on this action
And
item.
we're not denying you that. That's what Trustee Bruno just asked you. What more information would you like to have? You provided that information to us.
You were given.
And so that's our next step, is to get that information. So, I mean, no one is denying you anything.
Thank you. I didn't
There's
say that
nothing
anyone was denying
wrong
me
with the
anything,
process that
Madam
we're
President.
following. The process that we're following is exactly the correct process for making a change to bylaws.
So we will be receiving information. Is that what you're indicating, Madam Chairperson?
I would just. need to know-
I think it depends on what the vote is. I mean, at this point, if we vote to approve it, then there won't be any further information requested. And if
But
we
noting
take
again, we
questions,
cannot vote to change our bylaws without following the process that's outlined in our bylaws. of
We don't
changing
feel
our
that we
bylaws.
require any further information, then we can make a vote. So I have a call for the question, for the vote.
Superintendent.
No, I was just gonna ask if you do, I just need clarity on what we would want. The policy typically would be, the original one is there, the sample policy, the sample language is what's highlighted in the packet. If the board chooses to ask for more information, I would just want clarity on that. Sorry, I was a little bit behind.
We don't
And
even
then
have that
also-
right now.
So at
I
this
would-
point, we only have a motion to just bring it to the floor for discussion.
And
No,
then-
I'm making a motion to table this, actually.
Is there a second to motion to the motion?
it a question first. I think Ms. Anderson called the question first.
Okay, so there was no second. The motion fails on the floor, and we have a motion to approve. We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. We have any further discussion on the question?
I do. I don't understand the motion in what we just approved.
Motion is to approve the check revision as brought forth, and it was.
To revise our bylaws
To
is the
revise
motion.
our bylaws by Mrs. Anderson and seconded by Mr. Bruno.
I'm objecting to the consideration of this motion.
Do you have any further public comment?
I'd like a second if possible.
We got a second.
You just
Mrs. Anderson?
disregarded my objection. You didn't ask if there was a
did not.
second.
I asked for a second for tabling it, and there was no second, and then I said seeing no second, the motion has died on the floor. Then I got a motion from Mrs. Anderson to approve and a second from Mr. Bruno.
And then I
no further
objected to the
discussion.
consideration of the motion.
Pardon?
I objected to the consideration of the motion.
Is there a second to object? Is there any second to object to that
Okay,
motion?
do we have a second to object to the motion? I don't know, I've never
Then
had
you
it.
can go ahead and have a
happen.
roll call vote. If there's no second, that would end.
Died on the floor.
It dies on the floor, and
Yep.
now the original motion, which was
Is
made
to
and
approve
seconded.
the change to the policy. Okay,
Wait, actually, I do have a little bit of discussion on this.
okay,
I'm sorry. Just to clarify, because reading this over, it says must provide verification that they continue to reside within the school district's boundaries. What form of verification would be required?
And my thought on that would be if the board did approve something, is the verification be similar to a student that approves residency within the district? Whether it's a utility bill, driver's mortgage statement, 2 forms that's provided. So I would follow that lead if that were to be approved.
But we're not employees of the district, and so I'd like to add to that since we're in discussion. It's really, first, I'm continuing to object to us disregarding our own policy about how policies are developed and adopted on our board. And then second, I just want to point out again that there is ed code and there are election laws that are tied into this item in our bylaws. Unless the superintendent can produce, examples from other districts where this is being done, other district policies where this happens on other boards, then I think it's really an overreach. Not only are we not following our own policy adoption process, we're overreaching into verifications that are duplicitous. Each member of this board has already certified under penalty of perjury where they reside. And so for us to then require additional verifications on top of it, something I've been talking about since I started on this board was the various barriers that this board puts up to public participation. And creating even more barriers and verifications, you're starting to really restrict even more who comes here, who's allowed here, who's welcome here. And I think it's
a barrier, Dr. Lee. How can it be a barrier when it's already required?
Right, so why are we revising our policy to make it even more duplicitous, things that people have already declared under penalty of perjury? They register with the Secretary of State. If it's good enough for the Secretary of State, what's the problem is the question. Why is our board choosing to complicate it? That's the question of the day.
So Dr. Lee, first of all, regarding your statement that we're not following our policy, I respectfully disagree. I believe that we are. Now,
and I don't have the information I need as a board member. It has not been provided to me. I don't even see a draft policy.
You've made your position clear. I've heard you. I'm expressing my opinion now. I believe that we are following it. Now, as far as why, even though we have stated under penalty of perjury that we do reside within the district, over time, people can move and your residency can change. So this is why we want to do an annual re-verification that everyone continues to meet the requirement.
What other district does that, Trustee Bruno? Do you have examples of where that's done in other districts? I don't know of one.
You have to do it first.
I don't know.
We're responding
I don't know
to the community's request.
I don't know if other districts do it or not. And frankly,
I'd like to know. So I can make it.
I'd like to make decisions based on what I feel is best for our district and not what other districts do.
Yeah, and I'd like to do what's best for our district too, and that means removing barriers that this board continues to set up for people to make it difficult for them to serve and to make it a challenge with additional paperwork and bureaucracy around it. It's already been something that each person who's serving has already stated under penalty of perjury where they reside, and each board member in our policy, it outlines what you do when you no longer reside in the district. So again, it just seems very duplicitous, and it seems like we're again just putting up another inconvenience for folks. I mean, who really thinks that someone wants to spend their Wednesday evenings engaging in this kind of interaction with someone who doesn't reside or have a time for community?
Control freaks like to make policy for kids. Control freaks do. You know what? We as parents in this district want to make sure that you.
I'm calling point of order. This person's speaking out of order. They're not on our board.
The chair recognized.
My name is Marilyn.
We waited for.
I'm a parent in this district. I removed my children because I didn't feel that these policies were being made by the people in this community. I felt like the state is the Secretary of State, Gavin Newsom, they're making the policies for our children. I want people in my community to make policies for my children, not people that don't live here, that don't know my kids, that can't come to the school and visit my kids or my neighbor's kids. If you don't live in this district, you don't belong here. And if you have a problem with proving it, that is an issue. The issue that I see as a spectator in this is that why wouldn't you want to prove that you lived here? Why wouldn't you?
I mean, we're not just arbitrarily.
As someone
This is
who
something that
talks
has been
about
asked.
liberty and all of those other issues, I find it very interesting that we're talking about not following our own policies, making up additional bureaucracies, and just, you know, making board policy on the fly. It just speaks to the incompetence of this
I have a
district.
call for the vote, so we're gonna move to vote at this point. Roll call vote. Dr. Lee?
What are we voting on? I don't know what's being asked.
A motion to approve the resolution and a second to approve the resolution. And we've moved to vote.
Which resolution? I'm not understanding. what
Okay,
we're
let me
actually
start.
seeing.
Item E, I make a motion that we approve item E.
It's already been motioned and second, we just need a vote.
Roll call vote. Dr. Lee?
What is the update to the policy and how are the verifications going to be provided? You have not provided that information to me as a board member.
Yes, we did.
It's in the packet.
No, what will the annual verification process be? And what is it being based
The
on?
same as the students.
I called for the vote, there's no more
Nancy,
discussion.
wait, she's right, that we did not do a friendly amendment to the resolution, so,
And actually, I would
Sorry.
also state that we need to read.
okay. Mr. Bruno, would you like to make a friendly resolution or a friendly amendment to your own resolution?
Well, first of all, I would like to read what we have here. And this will be the first reading. Board member annual residency verification. Prior to the governing board's annual organizational meeting, each board member must provide verification that they continue to reside within the school district's boundaries. This annual verification will be made to the superintendent's office and shall not be made public. Upon verification from all governing board members, the superintendent shall report their findings to the entire board. And I would like to amend this to say acceptable forms of identification would include mortgage or lease, utility bills, or other verifications similar to what students provide.
So the same requirements as what students are required
Yes.
to provide.
You can say district enrollment.
District enrollment, yeah.
Yes, that's very good.
Okay.
So can you put together?
Yeah, so we got that.
So is this the first read of the policy or the second read? I'm just curious.
That was the first read. We're revising it and then we're gonna do a second read.
Oh, we're doing it all in one meeting. Okay, that's a new procedure as well. Okay.
The procedure does not mention how many meetings it must be spread across.
And it can be a one.
It says the superintendent or designee shall develop and present a draft policy for a first reading at a public board meeting. At its second reading, the board may take action on the proposed policy.
And we are at a meeting. We're doing the first reading and we're gonna do a second
The
reading.
second reading, we're
And
going
take
to take
action.
a vote.
You need a second for the amendment.
So we can read it.
You need a second for the amendment.
A second, thank you.
Thank you.
I love.
Need all the help.
Thank you so
And you know
much.
what? I just want to say, I appreciate you holding us to it.
I'm like squirrel.
I don't live in the district.
Well, move here, darn it.
So there was a motion and a second on the friendly amendment. Does the board would like Carol to read what
Yes,
it is? So
The
you hear it,
new-
so you're
so the
voting.
May I
new
suggest
resolution.
other amendments before you do? That if the district is unable to verify the documents that they're given, that we let the attorney verify them.
I mean, I think we're getting a little bit far on that. I
Yeah,
think that
let's
would be. the
Yeah, we can all
process.
speak to each other as attorneys, really.
Oh, it's a federal crime to.
Right.
It certainly is, but it's not up to us to police that. It's up to the state of California to police that, really.
Yeah, so
When
please,
you're ready,
Carol,
Carol.
as soon as you're ready.
no rush.
So what was added to the end?
The whole,
Just
just do the whole.
The whole thing.
Board member annual residency verification, sorry. Prior to the governing board's annual organizational meeting, each board member must provide verification that they continue to reside within the school district's boundaries. This annual verification will be made with the superintendent's office and shall not be made public. Upon verification from all governing board members, the superintendent shall report their findings to the entire board. Acceptable forms of verification could include mortgage, lease agreements, utility bills, and forms used for district enrollment.
Thank you. Okay, is that our second reading?
So.
No, that's what, you need a second for the amendment.
Second. I seconded the amendment.
Oh,
Yes, she did.
Okay.
Okay, and so then, since that was the amended resolution read for the first time through, can we just read it one more time, just to be
Sure.
absolutely certain? Thank you, Karen, sorry.
Cal, do you want me to hold it over here? I can see you, but.
Should have just recorded it.
Do you want Spanish?
It's recorded.
It's recorded. It's recorded.
The whole thing?
Please, thank you.
Board member annual residency verification. Prior to the governing board's annual organizational meeting, each board member must provide verification that they continue to reside within the school district's boundaries. This annual verification will be made with the superintendent's office and shall not be made public. Upon verification from all governing board members, the superintendent shall report their findings to the entire board. Acceptable forms may include mortgage, lease agreements, utility bills, and other forms used for district enrollment.
Okay, first and second reading, do we have any?
I motion to approve.
Second. Well, we've already got a motion and I got a second. All right, roll call vote, Dr. Lee.
I vote no for the reasons stated that we are not following our own board policy for new policy adoptions. And I have not received information that was needed.
I vote aye.
Oh, aye. Mrs. Anderson? Aye. And the chair votes aye. The resolution is passed. Moving on to business item F, recognition of Heritage Months. At the September Board of Trustees meeting, the board requested staff to compile a list of heritage-related recognitions from the California Department of Education's calendar of events, special recognition events. This modified list is attached for the board's consideration and also provided is possible process for acknowledging the recognition. Do we have a motion to bring it to the floor or to approve?
So moved.
I'm sorry, are you moving it for discussion?
To the
or for-
floor. To the floor.
To the floor, great. And do we have a second? Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Dr. Lee and Mr. Bruno.
I have a question regarding this. At the last board meeting, Dr. Lee, you stated that our intentions were made clear with the revised list that had been put out. I don't understand what you meant by that. Could you please elaborate?
Yes, I was really speaking to the fact that our board had laid clear parameters to our superintendent on which list was to be used. And then there was a draft list that was circulated that did not include the items that were on the list that we had directed our superintendent to use. That's what I was commenting on. And in that meeting, our superintendent did recognize that that had in fact happened, and he brought back the list that we were originally discussing.
Okay, and what do you believe were the motivations that we made clear with that list?
I said to maintain the status quo instead of making a shift to the heritage operations. That was my full statement, Trustee Bruno.
So, Mr. Allaire, I have a question for you. how did the list grow from the CDE list to what you had previously presented?
So I had shared, myself and Ms. Hunt had culled through the list from CDE. I had put out a list in a Friday communication asking all board members to please provide if I missed anything, forgotten anything. I received feedback actually from you, Mr. Bruno, adding a bunch. I think Trustee Anderson also gave me a couple that I added. We did denote on that sample list that there were, the ones with asterisks were from CDE, the others were additional. So that's where it came from. And upon reviewing tape from last meeting, it was clarified. So that was my mistake. I probably should not have asked for any other feedback on that other than what was on the list, but that is where it originated from.
Okay, and I would like to read from the email that I sent to you. I said, I've been doing a lot of digging about Heritage Months, and what I found is that almost no two sites, colleges, CDE, various diversity websites, etc., have identical lists. I sent an email to the communications office of the CDE to inquire about how they determine which months to show on their webpage. By the way, I still have yet to receive a response from them. One of the most inclusive calendars I found is at, and I provided a link to it. I used this site and a few others to complete the below list. Picking out month-long events to honor heritage, here's the list I compiled. Admittedly, some of this is subjective, and it can easily be argued that I'm including or leaving out too many. I mostly used Heritage Month or History Month in the name as criteria with a few additions. And then I provided the list from that site that included National Hispanic Heritage Month, Filipino American History Month, German American History Month, Italian American Heritage Month, LGBTQ History Month, Polish American History Month, National American Indian and Alaska Native Heritage Month, Black History Month, Irish American Heritage Month, Women's History Month, Greek American Heritage Month, Arab American Heritage Month, Tartan Scottish American Heritage Month, Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, Haitian Heritage Month, Indian Heritage Month, South Asian Heritage Month, Jewish American Heritage Month, Caribbean American Heritage Month, LGBTQ Pride Month, Portuguese Heritage Month, and French American Heritage Month. And I said, I hope this helps with your efforts to put together a list. It's the most comprehensive list I was able to produce and goes well beyond what is recognized by the CDE. See, I took the comment about pulling from the CDE to be a starting point. What I actually did was not an effort to preserve the status quo, but to be as inclusive as possible, because I believe that every heritage is valued.
You know, there's one that I thought of that I don't believe has been mentioned on any of the lists, and we have a very large population of them here, is the Ukrainian.
I was unable to find a heritage month for them, an official heritage month, but I did look.
So right off the bat, we're leaving somebody off.
Croatian Americans.
So again, I'm going by the official heritage months, and I was looking for the ones that were already established, and I was unable to find one, but if one was established, I would be open to include that as well.
I'll again just point out something that I've consistently stated. I provided the definition to our board multiple times of what heritage months are and what their purpose and intent is in American culture and history. And it really is to elevate marginalized groups and communities who've been traditionally left out of American history. That is the purpose and intent of heritage months. And so that's why you see the groups that are mentioned on the CDE site. So we are in the state of California. And so our state has listed the heritage months that are recognized at the federal level and at the state level. That's why it's been suggested that we look at that list and that we honor the intent and purpose of heritage months.
Do you have any information on how the CDE puts together its list? Because I was unable to turn up anything on that. And if you look at the CDE compared to other state agencies, their lists are not the same.
And the only problem I have with that is we're not elected to represent the state. We're elected to represent the local community. That's what the school board is for, the local representation.
That's right. And heritage months are for elevating marginalized populations.
Fine, of the local population. So let's include what we have here at Center.
I mean, I really,
I really feel like no matter what we do with this, now that we've opened Pandora's box,
Exactly.
nothing's gonna be right. If we vote to approve, then someone will be left out. If we vote to, we decline the resolution, then we're being
That's
racist.
what the problem was. to start
Or
with.
we're not being, diverse, sensitive. It's just such a nightmare. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but please,
I will have.
by all means.
I motion recognition of certain days or months, including purpose and description, will be brought to the board by our center community, such as district departments, school site, a class, a student, or outside community, including board members, for consideration. The district will include recognitions in a monthly newsletter, and the board president will announce them at board meetings.
We really want to open up on.
It's better than having a list because we're not fully inclusive.
So then basically, if someone wants to be recognized or someone wants a group to be recognized, they bring it forward and a board member could do so and has.
Correct.
So that
And anyone else could do so.
Can we do it on an ongoing basis? you're
Yes,
saying?
every month.
On an ongoing basis.
Absolutely. So let's say we're gonna celebrate Courageous Heritage Month. You want to celebrate it in January, bring it to the board November, December. And if the board approves,
So then once it's on the list, would it remain on the list in perpetuity or would it need to be brought back again every year?
I didn't hear
Make
it.
them bring it back next year. You're gonna be held responsible.
I didn't hear your motion. If your motion included creating of a list, what I
no,
thought I
it's just
heard you
having the
say
community
was.
member, center community,
If-
bring the idea to the board with the description and purpose of the day.
And then the
or-
board would then consider adopting that, and then the staff would then publicize that approval or that.
Yes, and a newsletter, and board president would then recognize it in that month's meeting.
I think that's a great friendly amendment that trustee Pope is suggesting. I don't know, trustee Pope, if you're intending that would preclude the list that Superintendent Lair has already gathered and that we've looked at multiple times. Or if that's attaching on that we're leaving it open so others can also nominate additional months. I just was requesting clarity.
I'm saying to just eliminate the list, because obviously it's causing conflict with the board. Can you imagine if it was approved? It's gonna cause conflict throughout the district. So eliminate the list and have the community come to us, our center community, and bring forward. And then, as Marilyn's, I'm sorry, I called you by your first name, I apologize.
Wonderful.
As she stated, and she had a great idea, bring it back next year on a yearly basis.
The only loophole I see with that is that someone has already brought forth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items for approval. So would we vote to approve what's already been brought forward?
No, just eliminate that and start fresh, and let's embrace our center community with what they're.
What was provided?
Then we
before
continue
was
to
it
not recognize the marginalized communities that are known and that we've already documented and put forth.
And
I guess what I'm saying is you're saying that people bring it forward and someone already has brought it forward.
But was that a
So it
formal,
would
like,
fall
motion?
under
I thought
what you're saying.
So I think you're actually getting at a very easy solution. Dr. Lee, you keep mentioning marginalized groups, which there's nothing to what you just put out there. There's nothing that would stop any member of the public or the board from bringing any names on that list forward, whether there's a list or not. So if we want to honor and accept that honor for a particular month, individuals can notify it through any agendized item. You just let the district know, work with the board president at the time, we put it on the agenda. It seems to me that would be a compromise where we
And
can
we
still
could use
achieve.
these.
So I'm bringing those 8 forward right now on this action item.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Comment here, because I'm having a problem with this. I'm sorry. I'm having a problem with this because we're talking about marginal groups. So say we have group A over here with 2 kids in it and group over here with 5 kids in it.
Group B has a kid they can send to a board meeting and say, we want to, pat ourselves on the back, let's have this fancy day. Group A over here has 2 kids in it that are autistic, and either way, then we're gonna come forward and say, I want a day to recognize me. Aren't we doing the opposite of what we're intending to do?
No, I think, no.
So I think we're overthinking the
Yeah.
process.
No,
I think, I mean,
I think what you're saying is right, Scott, is that if we do it the way that Del Rey is proposing, then it's possible we would require you, Dr. Lee, to bring each of these forward, like for the February one, maybe bring it forward in January as one of the items, and then just have a standing item on the agenda that would be recognition of marginalized groups. Someone could come up and present it, and we could recognize it.
Can we say recognitions instead of saying marginalized?
I agree.
Yes,
So
yes.
they're heritage months. That is the purpose of heritage months, to elevate
Heritage months, right.
traditionally marginalized and ostracized groups in American culture and history. That is the purpose. That's why we have Black History
Recognition of
Month.
heritage.
That's why we have a Native
Recognition.
American History Month. That's why we have LGBTQ month. Those are marginalized groups.
Okay.
Marginalized groups, but we have more than marginalized groups coming to the board to bring
All right,
forward.
since this is the last item on the agenda, just a minute, Steve. Can we take like a 5-minute recess
Please.
for Del Rey to fine tune what you put there? And then Steve, you have a comment.
I do have a question.
Okay, so you need to walk away for a minute. All right, let's take a 5-minute recess. Sorry.
It can talk to
It
me.
can wait. Yeah, let's do a 5-minute recess.
I just
Sorry,
need
guys.
to air.
I know the meeting's almost over and we're taking a break, but I think we need it. So just a couple minutes. What did he say?
Hold on, make sure. Dr. Lee's back.
Dr. Lee's ready.
There she is.
Thanks, you guys, for your patience and tolerance of that. I think we have a resolution to bring forward.
I have some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Dr. Lee, you said that you preferred the CDE's list because it's about the marginalized communities. How do you define who is and who isn't a marginalized community?
So in this motion, the one that's on the table, the list that's been provided really gives examples of marginalized communities, communities that have, traditionally and historically been excluded in various ways. That's where Black History Month comes from. That's where Native American History Month comes from. Sikh Appreciation Month. If you just look at the list and the names of the groups, you would be able to hopefully better understand how some of those groups, all of the groups that are on the Heritage Month list for the CDE have been historically marginalized and actually excluded from many history storytelling efforts and elevation in the curriculum. That's how Heritage Months came to be, as far as I know.
So the expanded list I provided included Jewish American Heritage Month. And I didn't see that in the CDE list, but I think we can all agree that they have been a marginalized community as well. So again, I don't think the CDE necessarily has it right. And the list I provided was an attempt to be inclusive because whether or not a group feels like they've been marginalized gets very subjective. So.
Okay, I would like to clarify, if we're gonna approve the list that's in here, we're approving everything on this list, not just
No,
groups.
that other list is provided for reference only. That's, just the first page was the list, but I think that we're gonna probably diverge from that. So it'll be moot.
I'm again making a motion that we approve the 8 that are there. And if there is a friendly amendment to have another process where other groups could be elevated, to do that process. I think for us to continue to be one of the few districts in the area that doesn't recognize Heritage Months is deplorable. And for us to just do it, it's kind. That's like a small action. It's very performative, actually. Just saying, I recognize that there are these groups who exist in our culture, in our society. So I'm making the motion that we approve the 8 that are listed there that the staff procured from the list, and that we do have a process to bring others forward, as Trustee Pope had mentioned.
Second to Dr. Lee's motion.
Steve, where's your list? Is it here?
You need to finish the motion.
Yeah,
There's
we have a
motion that-
second to Dr. Lee's motion. I believe we have to ask twice. Hearing no second, the motion is died on the floor. Do we have any other motions to entertain?
I do, please.
Please
Okay. I move that recognition days or months, including their purpose and/or description, will be brought to the board by our center community, such as district department, school site, a class, a student, an outside community, including board members, to be considered for approval. If approved, the district will include recognitions in the monthly newsletter, and the board president will announce them at the board meeting. Recognitions must be submitted to the district superintendent's office during the month prior to the development of the next board meeting agenda.
Does that mean that Steve could submit his list to the superintendent?
He would
As a board member?
submit a day or a month prior to the recognition.
I'll second the motion. Sorry.
Is the motion up for discussion, or are we?
Yes, well, I just seconded it.
Oh,
So now
okay.
it's open for discussion.
Yeah, that seems like a really cumbersome process. There's already 8 that have been submitted from a member. And so to just say that those weren't submitted and that a process wasn't used to vet them, it's deeply concerning to me.
I don't think we're saying that these are going to be disregarded. I think that what we're saying is that we're gonna put a process in place, and that then the ones that you have submitted can be considered under that new process.
Which is a monthly process, instead of us stating that we are recognizing those months as a district. Every month we'll have to come and say that, which doesn't even give folks time to prepare, to incorporate that into, their activities. It wouldn't, what would be the purpose of that is my question to the chair. What would be the purpose of the monthly approval? How would that give staff or faculty time to do anything with that?
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying. I mean,
I don't think it's I don't think it's cumbersome. I think if we put the motion or approve this motion and make it starting next month, if there is a month, there might not be a month that there is a recognized date or date or month. So I think bring it to the board when the community member or people or community brings it to the board, then we can discuss.
Are we gonna put a limit on how many times a year we recognize each group? Because they can come in.
Well, no, it has to coincide with national, the day that it's.
Does it have to be during some time that year that the month that they're recognized nationally?
Of course, yes.
Okay, there should be some guidelines.
Well, yes, I mean, would there be any problem to approving them in advance? Like if she wanted to say, these are the ones I want to present for the whole next year?
I mean, just from my standpoint, receiving these, and knowing Dr. Lee and working with her, she'd probably set up an email and it would probably auto-populate anyway, so why not just give me the list? But I think your point, Dr. Lee, is recognizing a bigger group right away gives more time for people to acknowledge and see that this board is standing behind or standing with these 8 marginalized groups.
I don't know why that would give us more time.
No, I just think that's what she's saying.
Yes,
is
but
the
I don't
idea.
understand why that would give us any more time.
Yeah,
I don't understand the problem with approving these 8 months. What's the problem with that? What's the problem with saying we as the board stand by?
Others. That doesn't have anything to do with that. I mean, that's, if we're gonna say that anyone can bring something forward, she's bringing these forward, and she's saying, what would be the problem with bringing all 8 of them forward all at once?
Then I have
Make
something
it
to add.
easy.
And you could.
Okay.
And that's what
You can. That's the beauty of the resolution, is that you can submit whatever you want.
Let's add autism, and there's a special autism.
Okay, let's submit that
Okay, but-
email then. We
but-
don't have to.
Yeah, let's
Let's just take the motion and.
Take
vote.
the motion on the
They should not
table.
be recognized any more than any others, so why should they be brought up first?
Because she is a community member who's bringing it forward with explanation as to why she feels it needs to be brought forward, and then we can choose to vote for it or vote against it.
Then I should be able to bring some
You can.
forward.
You can.
Anybody can. You're part
That's
of the
the point.
community.
That's what the resolution is that anyone in the
The motion.
community, the motion is that anyone in the community can bring something forward. And all Lee is saying, Dr. Lee is saying, is why couldn't she do all of them at once?
Well, just so we realize that there will be more added. throughout the
That's fine.
month.
Absolutely.
But then they would need to be brought forward again the following year.
Yes.
Is everybody kind of
So do
good
we
with
want
that?
to delete during the month prior?
Just say prior to the development of the agenda. So that she doesn't get it on Friday before the meeting when the agenda is already posted. And then they're mad because it didn't get included.
Yeah, it just needs to follow the submission for the agendas. I mean,
Yeah.
2 of the groups that were on this list that I actually liked, and I'll find them,
Okay, but we're not gonna vote on those just yet.
Yeah, you can submit them now.
We're just gonna vote on the process, which is that they can be submitted.
Okay, so then we're not gonna vote on hers either.
No, that's correct. We're gonna.
They're not mine. They're not mine. These are heritage months that belong to America. They're
And
not
Dr. Lee,
Dr. Lee's months.
I hope you don't mind that I'm gonna say, let's wait and submit them for next month, because the first one on here is for February. So I think we're safe in saying that this can be brought forward under the new process next month. Does that sound right to everybody? Good? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor, which is, could you read it one more time?
I moved that recognition days or month, including purpose and or description, will be brought to the board by our center community, such as district, department, school site, a class, a student, or outside community, including board members, to be considered for approval. If approved, the district will include recognitions, plural, in the monthly newsletter, and the board president will announce them in the board meetings. Recognitions must be submitted to the district superintendent's office prior to the development of the next board meeting agenda.
And only one correction, recommendations will be brought forward, right?
Recommendations
Yeah.
must be submitted.
And we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
That's exactly where we started out.
Yes.
It's,
I'm gonna make an additional motion on this item, but I guess we're going through this first part of it, so.
So if you want to make a friendly amendment to the motion, that has to be done prior to us voting on the motion.
Okay, so I'd like to make a friendly amendment that the list that's already been submitted be approved as well.
Do we have a second on the friendly amendment? Ugh.
So I'm not understanding the process here, President Kelly, because on the agenda, this states that the motion that we're doing action on is on the modified list. Trustee Pope has submitted a completely different motion, and that's what we're now discussing. So I'm confused about the process, because what it says here on the agenda and what we're actually talking about doing are two different things.
So anyone on the board can submit a motion.
This was tabled.
The original one was
No
tabled.
second.
Yeah, and no one seconded, it died on the floor. And so then a second motion was submitted.
Oh.
So I think that that's all copacetic with.
You would have the right to amend. It sounds like the original proposal or the original recommendation was not accepted by the board. The board came back with a member came back with an alternative.
Yeah.
The board got a first, it got a second. You would vote on that and then go from there.
And then we had a friendly amendment, which I'm gonna ask one more time. Is there a second to the friendly amendment to approve the list that has been brought before us?
you're asking for Dick Del Rey's?
No. So there is no second for the friendly amendment, which then has died on the floor. And we go revert back to the original motion. We've already heard it twice. Is there any further discussion?
I would like to further discuss it, because the way that motion is written, it says that every single month someone must come. I'm again asking for clarification if someone can bring a list and ask for that to be approved by the board.
Yeah, I think we clarified that can happen under the way that it's worded.
Okay, I still just hear it saying every month that will be brought by a member of the community. I
Every
didn't hear
month
that
they
part.
can, if they choose to, bring it forward. But it has to be submitted prior to the development of the agenda for the following month. So in other words, they can't bring it in, like our meetings on December 15th. They can't bring it in on December 14th and say, hey, I want you guys to approve this. It has to follow, that's all that piece of it says, is that it has to be submitted to the district superintendent's office prior to the development of the agenda for the following board meeting.
So someone could submit a list under that.
Absolutely, yes, I think that's what we determined, is that a list could be provided.
Correct. So any board member, any community member, and then they would then, because we're the ones who are gonna have to try to make sense of all this, would then these lists come forward, we then bring it forward to the board for a recommendation to approve the recognition for that month, whether it's 1 or 2 or whatever heritage months are on there, correct?
Yeah.
And then we would then, okay, I just want to make sure
I would say that we could approve anything for any time of the year,
Correct.
at any time of the year, but then the recognition would happen during the month that it applies to.
Correct.
Yes.
So, and I'm very curious about that, President Kelly, because I, again, did ask the board to consider those 8 heritage months and the board declined. So our board is then saying we don't support those heritage months. Is that correct?
We're saying we're gonna put this new process into place and then we're hoping that you will bring it forward next month.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Does that sound
we are in
reasonable?
no way saying that we don't support those communities. That's
Yes,
not what we're saying.
absolutely, we are 100%, I mean, I am.
For my clarity, just for my clarity, so let's just run the course of this. The board approves this practice, this motion. Tomorrow, let's say Dr. Lee sends me the list of 8 months.
Mhm.
So then Carol and I then would queue those up. We would then bring those months, the particular month prior to, for the board to recognize supporting that heritage month for that time. We would then, you guys would consider it. If approved, then the next month when it was being honored, we would then put that in there. Is that what?
Just the particular month that pertains to December or
Correct.
October, not
Correct.
the whole month, not the whole list.
Well, it depends on, yeah,
Not the
but
whole
if,
list.
but if I had a list from Dr. Lee that had 8 right off the bat.
For the month of December. Or
No,
let's say
it'd
January.
be, let's say December, January,
Yeah.
February, whenever it comes up, we would then put that on for that timeframe, correct?
For that agenda.
For the agenda.
Does that sound fair?
It doesn't really, because we go back to, sometimes our meetings, they're mid-month. And so we're
We
approving
would be doing it the month prior.
prior, and then it's like we don't have a regular rhythm, but okay, yeah, I understand. Thank you, I understand better what
No,
we're
if it
talking
was
about.
for February, which the next one is, that in January, we would vote on it.
Okay.
Question.
Mhm.
Since we're talking about the calendar and groups and how that's processed, there's also on this list a bunch of days that are recognized.
That's what we said, Nancy, days or month.
Yeah, so that list,
Days of
Nancy, is back up to the original where the 8 were pulled from as heritage months, as the board had directed me. So that was just as reference, so you guys could see that, but based on the motion that was just made, if approved, an individual could bring some of those days forward. And let's say there's a bus driver week.
Yeah.
If transportation wanted to bring that forward,
They could do that.
obviously it's not a heritage month, but there is a recognition that the board is saying, a recognition can be brought forward. But I think to Dr. Lee's point is, she's saying right now, I'm gonna submit the 8 heritage months, and then we would then bring each of those 8 back prior to the month that the recognition is being
recognized.
given. And then that helps us, because then as we're putting out communications, we can put that, the board had approved, the board is in support, Center Unified School District is in support of National African American History Month for February. So that's the clarity I need. And then if someone wanted something additional, if Mr. Bruno wanted to bring something else, we'll call that list together.
Autism month
Correct.
or whatever it is. Polish American month.
Some of the days are supposed to
All
be
right.
national holidays. I never even heard of the people.
Okay, let's call for the vote. Roll call vote. Dr. Lee,
Aye.
Mr. Bruno,
Aye.
Mrs. Pope,
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson, and the chair votes aye. And that is passed. So that is the last
No, we got
business item. Now we have, now this is probably not the appropriate place to say it, but for next month, let's talk about committee updates not being at the end of the meeting so that these poor guys don't have to wait till the very end.
Well, they'll be here no matter what.
Okay, so committee updates, item 15, the number 1 curriculum instruction and special education update, Mike Jordan. Come on down.
Okay, just wait.
Good evening. I'm just gonna highlight one very positive thing that's happening in the district. As we talked about before, we brought in social workers. We've got 4 different social workers at different sites, plus one that came in from SCOE. And I want to just give you a piece of information about what they've been able to accomplish at one site. And I'm going to pick North Country. North Country is a site that historically we have not had a counselor there before, a full-time counselor or a social worker. Just in the first quarter this year, our social worker has had 64 referrals They've done 40 individual services with students. 186 individual counseling sessions have been delivered. 34 lunch bunch students, these are students that are coming into a friendship groups, those kind of things at lunch. 6 peer mediations facilitated, gone to 11 different classrooms and taught, done SEL activities and lessons, and had 86 parent contacts. That's remarkable, how much has happened in a short amount of time. Considering that person's brand new to the school, the first few weeks, you're just figuring out what's going on. Social workers are very valuable, counselors are very valuable, as are teachers and everybody else. I'm not discounting anyone else.
Yes.
But this just shows what the positive impact of this COVID money has had, and also highlights the needs of our students. But we did have an impact on them from a mental health perspective. And we're trying to meet that need, and I applaud our social workers and those at the board and the superintendent for allowing those funds to go towards that.
Is this the year of the child's mental health or children's mental health? I think it is.
I would argue every year should be.
I think it's specific.
Every year
Wow,
from
thank you.
0 to 18.
How are you doing with the
How are, in terms of,
is I ready helping with the assessment?
so we're going into our, so we have our baseline data. We took the beginning of the year. We have our second assessment opens up after the Thanksgiving break. It'll go for a few weeks. At our next board meeting, I'll bring back the data from that, from our baseline, and hopefully from our second assessment as well.
Disaggregated, right?
Yeah, that's correct. It's actually sitting on my desk from the first go around.
Very nice.
All right,
Earlier in
any
the year.
questions for Mr. Jordan?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir. Thank you for your patience this evening.
Do we have an update on your brother?
I'll give you one offline.
Committee updates, number 2, facilities update with Richard Putnam.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
All right, so we've got some little updates and then we've got some bigger updates. So number 1, for Trustee Pope, I don't know if you've seen, but we have the fencing up around the first wing at McClellan High School. We also have 2 gates there to help with some access, but we've also still left an open end that would go out towards the playground hardcourt area. So that way we don't have to go through all the additional items with panic hardware and other items to meet fire code. So we have that all taken care of. It's a nice little wrought iron fence that we did on that.
Thank you, Mr. Putnam.
Center High School, we got the new electronic marquee up. The problem is the control board for it went down. Stewart Signs is in the process of, soon as they get those components in for building a new one, then they'll get it to us. So we're hoping here in the next couple of weeks, we will have the sign fully up and running, but the top part that says Center High School and all that lights up at night now also. So we're making some progress on that.
Is that the same area as the original?
Yes, it's right up there in the same.
And I did drive by and it wasn't working and I'm like, what am I missing?
Yeah,
But now I
so
know.
that's why. Some bigger items coming up. I was in talk with Placer County in regards to some of the work that they've done here on PFE Road, because here to the west, we've lost access to our property because of the elevation changes. So with the developer and with the county, they're going to cut us a new access. So we have that. And having that discussion also, I asked them, Walerga intersection, they're hoping to have things wrapped up by the end of this month, beginning of December. Then I asked them the next question, when's what going to happen?
Yeah.
That will be happening this next spring.
Oh.
And they will be starting at PFE and the Watt intersection, moving north, but that will impact McClellan High School as well. We don't know the full extent on that as of yet, but that is what discussions I've had with Placer County. I will reach out to Sacramento County Traffic because then they're going to have their portion, because on the Placer County side, Watt's going to be at least 4 lanes wide, if not 6. They'll have a new bridge, which will actually be bigger than the Walerga Bridge. So it's going to become a main thoroughfare in that area. And then the last, we finally received appraisal on the property for the Rex Fortune site. We have engaged our attorney, Mr. David Soldani, to negotiate with the property owner. And those are currently going on, and we will hopefully have some news shortly.
Hopefully. Hopefully good news.
Hopefully good news.
Last
When are you gonna start
minute
building?
Took my breath away.
That'll all depend on how fast we can finish up with the negotiation on that. And then, of course, with weather and everything, I would anticipate if it was a perfect world, we'd probably be breaking ground probably April.
Wow, nice.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Ceremony.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Putnam. Okay, moving on to item number 16, board and superintendent reports. I have a question. Is 10 minutes supposed to be our total time for this?
Typically, yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, let's try and keep in
Let's
mindful
wait
of that.
for tonight.
Let's try and be mindful of that a little bit. Okay, so Dr. Lee, would you go first, please?
I went first the last time. I prefer for someone else to go first this time.
Mr. Bruno, would you like to go first, and then we'll go back to Dr. Lee?
Sure.
I'm so sure she did.
I would like to start off by saying I apologize to everyone for my continued coughing up here. Good news is I got tested today. It's not COVID, it's just a cold. But it is quite annoying, and I appreciate everyone bearing with me and making adjustments to kind of put me back in the corner here. And in other personal news, last week I took advantage of the holiday and using some vacation time to schedule getting my booster shot and some time to recover, because it is not easy on me personally, but I did get that. And then just as I was recovering from that, I got hit with the cold, because that's the way life works. And I would just like to state that, in my opinion, bringing forth what's going on with those should be the driving force behind our board reports. However, last month, some comments were made during board reports that, well, frankly, I felt attacked. And there was no place on the agenda to address that. So I would like to take a moment to address that here. I'm far from a perfect individual. There are many valid criticisms of me. I'm rather disorganized and unpolished, which is why I read from just some general notes, and I don't have a formal, well-written speech, and I'm clearly not going to be taken off in the political world, and I'm okay with that. My family will tell you that I can be a stickler for rules, and they encourage me to be more flexible. That's not easy for me. I've been told that I can come across as condescending at times. My kids will tell you that I have a horrible sense of humor and I love dad jokes a little too much. My wife will tell you that I have no fashion sense and only fake it because I have teenagers and a wife to help me out. However, those are all valid criticisms of me and I accept them. And, you know, I may not entirely agree with them, but I accept those criticisms. However, to say that I in any way, shape, or form am approving of racism or homophobia shows an ignorance for who I am as a person, and I find it grossly offensive. Yes, some comments have been made during board meetings that I considered to be racist or homophobic. And I didn't sit by quietly. I spoke up. I made my feelings known. And not to be naming names, but I reached out to Trustee Anderson and sent her an email letting her know that I was upset by her comments. And that was followed by a lengthy phone call that was not entirely pleasant. And we both had a very deep discussion. And I think we both came to understand each other much better. And, you know, I understand better where she's coming from. She better understands where I'm coming from. I didn't just let the comments slide. Instead, I discussed it with her as an adult. And I think that that she really did develop a better understanding of where I'm coming from. And I can say, I honestly believe that her comments were coming from a place of poor word choice and not understanding the hurtful nature of what she was saying, and not from a place of hatred. And, you know, one of the things that I mentioned is, as a country, we do have some things in our history that are not good, and we need to analyze those and change and do better. And she said, that gives me something to think about. And I appreciated that conversation, and I thank you very much. I think that is a mature way to handle disagreements. Regarding the comments that were made at last month's board meeting, I tried to follow a similar procedure. I emailed you, Dr. Lee, and said that I would like to speak with you about it. But you said due to the hostility between board members that you would prefer to communicate via email. So I put my thoughts into an email to you, and I did not get a response. Regarding hostility between board members, to be blunt, I don't see any hostility between board members that doesn't include you. And I think at some point you need to own your role in that. Excuse me a moment. You said that you want to work together, but I'm not seeing an effort to do that. When you won't respond, how can we resolve our differences and get to a working relationship? At our training a few months back, it was stated that no board member can accomplish anything by themselves. And that is 100% true. If we're going to accomplish anything, we need to do it as a team. We don't always have to agree, and we can passionately disagree, but we can do so respectfully. And we can then leave it at the door and move on and come back to the next meeting and start fresh. Community members have reached out, noticing obvious tension between Dr. Lee and Trustee Anderson. I'm asking you to sit down and resolve these differences and quit dragging the rest of us into it so that we can get on with the business of the board.
I'm more than willing to do that, Steve.
You'll have your moment. And frankly, this disruption is not professional. It's not providing a good role models for the students that we represent. And we should all do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Dr. Lee?
Yes, I'm going to reserve my board report to reporting on things that I've been doing and not on commenting about fellow board members or trying to police their behavior or make comments about their behavior, because I find that highly unprofessional. So welcome to November. It's hard to believe how the months are flying. And I find this behavior, it's just indicative. It's been ongoing. And I don't know if you notice how you look. It's hard to believe how the months are flying. As we continue to navigate this global pandemic, I hope that our students and our families are safe and well. I had a parent drop into my office hours this month with special education services concerns, and I did refer them to the superintendent, and hopefully they're able to get those issues resolved. I just want to again state to all of our parents, whether your student is receiving special education services or whether they're from a marginalized racial group or other marginalized groups, you're welcome here at this district. So I want to report that I'm really excited that we've approved the district's participation in the California School Board Association's Equity Network activities for the spring. I think that we're waiting for the registration form to open up for that, but I'm really excited to participate in that. Myself and President Kelly and Superintendent Lair are going to be signing up for that. And I think it's great that we're going to move forward and move ahead with learning more about how to govern with an equity lens, because I think that that's something that's so crucial for our education and for our educational efforts at this time. I also want to thank and recognize our community members. For November is California Sikh Awareness and Appreciation Month, as well as National Native American Heritage Month. And both groups have made many sacrifices for our communities locally and nationally. So thank you and elevating those months, which are taking place now, hoping that our teachers and our staff are celebrating these heritage months. With that, my next open office hours are Monday, December 6th, and you can access the Zoom link on the board website. My open office hours are open to all, so I welcome my colleagues here on the board, community members, anyone who'd like to connect with me. That's a consistent time and place. Welcome to drop in anytime during the hour 4 to 5 on first Mondays. I remain holding those consistently and love connecting with my colleagues as well as community members. And so be safe and be well, and we'll be in touch soon. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. I'm going to go ahead and go next, just because mine is not that long. I just want to say happy holidays to everyone. I'm looking forward to spending a real Thanksgiving with real people and, you know, being able to actually interact. So that should be great fun. And I hope you are all vaccinated and intermingling with other vaccinated persons. You know, that's my feeling. But anyway, recognitions this month of new people and promotions and retirements. So on the classified personnel, we have Jamie Buchholz, who has retired. Rose Marie Huggins, congratulations, Marie, for your retirement. Sandy Wise, library technician. And then we have promotions, Kira Jennings, who's staff secretary to a curriculum and instruction. Leslie Rodriguez, a bilingual assistant at Spinelli Elementary School. Georgia Standifer, campus monitor at Center High School. And new hires, welcome to the district, Nancy Martinez Ramos, who's a bus attendant. Tina Milton, noon duty aide. Samantha Murphy, behavior specialist 2. Elizabeth Pino, instructional specialist at Dudley Elementary. And for our certificated personnel, we have Anthony Quantamatio. Oh, please tell me I said that right. I don't know. At Center Adult School, Quantamatio. That sounds right. And that's it. So welcome and congratulations on the retirements and promotions. And that concludes my report. Mrs. Pope, would you like to do next?
I would, thank you. Just as a reminder, it was brought to my attention that not everybody knows where to get the agenda when they're watching via live stream. So the agenda is on the district website. It's right above the live stream link, actually. If you want the backup and board packet, go to the district website, site menu, board meetings, and the links are all listed there. I did hear concerns from community members that once we do not approve AB 361, that we will no longer live stream. And this confusion came from last meeting when there was a comment made about our digital processes. So I'd like to reassure that we will be live streaming from now on or going forward. The only change, if the resolution is not approved for the public, is that public comments will be made in person. We will not take written or phone calls, correct? Correct, okay. And then a point of clarification, and I'm going to go with Steve here in regards to last meeting. I'm going to say this once and I'm going to be done, but I need to clarify. I want to thank the community members for reaching out to me in regards to last month's meeting. I was not in attendance due to a prior obligation. However, I did watch it in live stream, and I have to agree, I was totally embarrassed by the continued bickering and animosity within this board. This has now continued for almost a year. Also, to call me racist, homophobic hater more than once in this public forum is untrue. I do not, am not, and will not ever condone such behavior. You do not know me. We have never met. We have never spoken publicly or even had a personal email. To say such negative words is a form of bullying, and it shows the inability to communicate. Sometimes you have to look at the character within before you judge or label me or others. I highly suggest airing your grievances with one another and hopefully before the next board meeting. These actions are ineffective to the business of this board. We are losing focus on our purpose, which is to serve the students of the district. And that's my vote.
Mrs. Anderson?
This has been a long time coming. To many of you, I owe an apology, and I'm sorry. I had just been at my wit's end over what's been going on at these board meetings. I have been a member of this board for longer than I care to admit. But I have never seen a new board member come in and immediately start jumping down the throats of fellow board members and attacking staff. It usually takes a full year for a new board member to learn the district and its programs. You don't just jump in and start tearing people apart. Comments to staff members have been rude and condescending, attacking people who are too professional and possibly afraid to speak up because they are at-will employees. The open hostility and hate has been that you have created. I did not, in the beginning, do anything to you or say anything to you. The only conversation we've ever had is I asked you if you got the recording of me congratulating you when you won the election. And you jumped down my throat. You said you never got the recording. The next meeting, I said something.
This board member is point of privilege. This board member is speaking.
I'm sorry, we're in the middle of a board report.
Yes, and it's a point of privilege which I can make at any time, and I'm expressing my discomfort. I have a right as a board member. It's called point of privilege. It's in Robert's Rule of Order. No, I'm not. I'm saying a point of privilege. I have great discomfort with board member after board member lodging personal attacks on me. I have not attacked anyone and stated that they are racist, and what he's saying is false.
You are out of order.
No, I'm not. It's point of privilege. I can say point of privilege at any time.
Every right to speak her mind. And
I have a right to defend myself against falsehood.
You have attacked me at every meeting, Lee. It's my turn.
No,
and I'm putting an end to it right now.
That's great, but what you're saying is false. It's simply not true. The record
you
speaks
have
for
made
itself.
such an issue
every single
about
person
one
up here
word,
said the
one
same
four-letter
thing.
word that I used in the heat of an argument over transgender.
Go by your notes.
What is BGT?
LGBTQ plus.
LGBTQIA, I think is the new letters they've added. One word. I have been in this district for 23 years. I fought tooth and nail for a transgender teacher who had done nothing wrong to keep his job. The people in this district know me, they know my character. For you to sit there and repeatedly, I think 20 times in your statement say that I was racial, prejudiced, and
I did not say that. Point of privilege, I did not say that.
And I'm sick of it. I am not homophobic. I am not prejudiced. And for you to sit there and repeatedly say it in a public meeting with community members is horrible.
It's
So
normal
if you
for
want
me
to know
have
where the
be
trouble's coming
subjected
from,
to
you
those
look at
statements.
yourself, Lee.
If you're gonna keep
You
addressing
started
me, I'm
these
going to
issues-
address you as well. What you're saying is false. That's not what happened, and that's
You
not
are
what
out
I
of
stated.
order.
No,
You
it's a point of
started
privilege.
these
I
issues
feel
and you brought
discomfort
all
at
this
being
to-
attacked.
She is in the middle of
Point of
her board
privilege.
report.
Point of privilege.
This board acted wonderfully for
Fine.
years until you walked in the door. Without ever an argument. Enough said.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Mr. Lear.
President, I just want to address the personal
No,
attacks
no,
that have
We did
just
not
been
allow
made.
Nancy to address last month when she was attacked again. We did not allow her to respond, and we were not going to allow you to respond. I'm
Okay, I
sorry.
just hope that my objections and my points of privilege make it into the record. That is what I'm requesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please.
So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge and appreciate the board for your action tonight to approve the bond sale. We look forward to that next phase and evolution of the district. Some of us who've been in the district for some years have really looked at the growth that we see moving in that area. We've been hearing about it since the first day I started in this district, so it's really nice to finally see that coming through. So I also wanted to add with that, just a thank you to Mr. Putnam and Ms. Coronado. We've spent a lot of time behind the scenes working with the bond agency. Your action tonight solidified the work we've been doing. We appreciate CFW and the work they've done to help us get to this point. So I just want to publicly acknowledge the two of them for the extra time they provided with that. I also want to just to echo the comments. It's funny, Mr. Jordan and I did not talk about his comments, but I wanted to say it's so neat. We see the plethora of supports we have for students' mental health within our district now. It's a great need. And as a result of that, we're seeing a lot of benefit to our students in our community. The work that Mr. Miranda does is also to be complimented. And the giving nature that I heard from this board and even the community, how do we give, how do we help, how do we support? So we'll make sure we get an email to staff to show them that they can provide that support. And then finally, I just want to wish everyone a happy holiday, happy Thanksgiving. I can't believe that we're already to November and it's Thanksgiving time. And I know that we'll be at graduation before we know it. So with that, I thank you. I wish everyone a great week away. I think we all need a little vacation. So thank you very much. Have a great evening. That's all I have tonight.
And happy
Do
Thanksgiving.
we have a motion to adjourn? Oh, no, I'm sorry. We still need to talk about. I apologize. Advanced planning, future meeting dates, next regular meeting will be Wednesday, December 15th at 6 p.m. here in the district boardroom, room 503, Rouse Middle School, 4747 PFE Road, et cetera, et cetera. Do we have any suggestion agenda items?
I do. We had a parent and a grandparent here that wanted us to agendize their situation.
I don't think.
Is that something we could do in closed session just to follow up on?
It's a student matter that would run through an IEP, that legal process. So I would want to run it through that. If a complaint or something came up, I would think we need to drive it to the process. So I'll work with Mr. Jordan. I will follow up with the board to ensure that matter is addressed. But I think it might be well out of order because I think there's more context that the IEP process might be working through.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think we can agendize a student item.
An IEP, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I was.
No, that's
closed session.
And I did, since I did want to also point, as Mr. Jordan pointed out, we do have we'll bring forward the assessment data broken down. I think he's going to do the AP and then the I-ready stuff. So we'll have that data disaggregated to share with you in December meeting as well.
Do we have dates for the governance handbook preparation?
Yeah, so I thank you and Stacey, sorry, Kelly, I'll call you out. Based on your comment, you're not up on your email. I've heard from all 4 board members on dates, so there's a couple dates sitting in your inbox. So not to call you out. The rest of these folks were really
I
quick.
just checked my email last night.
I know.
Steve, what's the problem?
Make me laugh, the cough just goes out.
I figured I would be hounding you guys, and I got all 4 responses from 4. So Kelly, I'll work. There's some dates that are out there. Also, there's another potential possible date for a special meeting in December to address the educator effectiveness that I think I've spoken with and shared with each of you. And then also, if we do get close to a land deal, we may want to have a closed session with our attorney on that piece as well.
So
So,
maybe we could combine those two.
so the dates are out there for December, and then there's some 2 January Saturdays that are left, that I think everyone, all 4 of you, except Kelly, will see if those work for you. Then I'll get with Monica.
Sorry.
No, you're take 24 hours, you're fine.
I was working, what can I say?
I do have,
Other agenda items?
yeah, I do have a couple. One, I'd like to bring forward the 8 heritage months that were submitted in this month's packet to our next meeting for board consideration and approval. 2, I heard one of the parents, and they've spoken to us a couple of times now, ask that we take a stand on the COVID-19 policy issue. So I'd like to see that agendized at our next meeting. I'd also like to just have more clarification about our new public comment process. I don't know how it was communicated to community members and how we're going about promoting that. So just bringing that to our next meeting. And the last one is something that's actually in our board bylaws, but we haven't had, to my knowledge. I'd like to bring up a discussion of a student board representative at our next meeting.
Yeah,
We've had them in the past, but because of COVID, we can't
Yeah.
have them, we can't have them.
We will definitely have them. Right now, we just did not have them, so we absolutely would bring that back for sure. It was really a COVID matter because we were distant, so.
Maybe.
Okay, are we
not
past
gonna
that
see
now?
emergency anymore?
No, we are.
So is
If
it-
you're not,
Lee,
you're
oh,
not, then-
if we're
Lee,
not,
does
yeah.
that satisfy, is that okay, or do you want, is there?
I would
further
like to
convers-
bring it as a discussion item to our next meeting if possible, so that we can get moving on it. I serve on other boards and there's student reps and they've
So-
been serving throughout this pandemic, so.
Yeah, so are we allowed to have
No.
them right now, or do you know?
We-
Let's agendize this.
Yeah, we can talk about
Okay.
it.
Okay, yep, good idea. All right.
Maybe they'll join us.
Any other agenda items? Okay, the chair.
And just for my clarity, that Lee, on your second request there, you said COVID-19, you mean the board stance on vaccination, on the board stance on?
On mandates?
That's what
mandate?
they were talking about, the mandates is
Okay.
what I heard from their
Okay.
public comment. Mhm.
So I don't understand, is it she wants each board member's opinion on the mandate?
I think there wants to be what I thought I heard was a discussion around the mandates.
I think, yeah, what'll happen is if it's agendized, that will open it up to public comment and board discussions.
I thought we did that one.
And I don't think there's a choice.
For.
But we
for
can
the
agendize
mandates?
it and talk about it.
Didn't
I don't think
we
so.
have that on the agenda last month?
It was on the agenda, a committee member has asked
There's
that
so
we
many mandates.
discuss it again, so.
Oh,
Are you guys gonna, what I wanted to know, just to clarify, is are you going to mandate, it's up to you guys to enforce, you hire and you fire your teachers. What are you gonna do with your employees that don't want a vaccine? Are you?
They're getting
going to-
tested.
But
I mean, the
that's
mandate
not,
right now
that's
is
not
that-
forever.
Next month.
They're trying to change that. OSHA is trying to change that.
so
right
again,
now.
this is not agendized right now, so the
Okay,
board
right.
cannot discuss
Yeah,
it,
sorry,
I'm sorry.
sorry, I know better.
But definitely, we will
Yeah.
bring it forward next month and we will be able to answer those questions, so. Or at least answer them to the best of our ability at that point. The board will not continue in closed session. Item number 19, do we have a motion? Motion to adjourn, any second.
Second?
Thank you, general consent.
Yeah.
Good
Bye,
night.
Lisa.
Antelope.
Good night. Happy
Thanks
Thanksgiving.
for hanging in. Guys, sorry you're here so late.